Okay. Stream should be working good here. Okay, one moment here, everyone. Post this on Twitter. Okay, here we go. Okay, how's everyone doing? I'm really sorry that I wasn't able to stream yesterday, guys. I was just so busy with that documentary that I just didn't get around to it. Tomorrow I'll have the next part of Modern Warfare up, and I'm gonna be working on my next lore video. And also, we're gonna be working on the next lore video and the Saints Row review. So that's what's coming next. I hope everyone's having a great day. I hope you guys like my documentary too. You know, I tried really badly to fight for Red Dead Online. I did, and it just really disappoints me just what happened with the game. And that documentary that I made, the purpose of it wasn't to try to convince Rockstar to support the game. I'm done with that. I have no hope in Rockstar supporting the game anymore. It was more to convince people to stop defending Rockstar. That was pretty much the point of it. And it was just, you know, I've seen comments of people accusing me of trying to milk Red Dead Online's outrage for views. It's just nonsense. I care deeply about Red Dead Online, and I just wanted I just wanted the game just to have an update. That's it. I wasn't expecting it. I didn't want anything special. All I wanted was I just wanted the game to have fair updates. That's it. Nothing more than that. Oh, I'm glad that you liked it, Emily. How did you not get a strike for the GTA? Well, I don't know. I shouldn't be getting one because I don't have gameplay or pictures or any of that stuff. I don't have that in. So that's but I know that people that haven't had it are getting like striked. But Take-Two are abusing the system right now. Yeah, but and also guys, I will not be discussing I don't want to discuss like the GTA 6 leaks or any of that stuff because you don't know Take-Two Interactive with just their strikes. It's just I don't want to talk about that personally. I'm scared of getting a strike myself. But what I will say is this hacker will be found. I'm pretty confident in that. Like the FBI is now involved, so I think the hacker is going to be found. I'll stream for like 2 hours. Does anyone need help selling anything? If anyone needs help selling anything, just send me an invite. Oh, I actually don't like beards. I don't like facial hair personally. Crime scene. Oh. There's a crime scene right here, okay. Yeah, I see it. I really wanted to get this M16, but I just never got around to it.
People always want to cast ugly.
Perfect. Nice, okay. Okay, let me help you, Brandon. How do I get out of here? Oh, I can just go to your business. I'll just do that then. Hey, professional. So I know, I mean, I would love another open world game in the 1980s. Yes, I have. The Urban Chaos. Isn't that the game where you play as the SWAT, I think, and you fight, like, those gangsters that wear hockey masks? Is that the game that we're thinking of? We thinking of the same one? Yeah, I actually never got the the M16 parts. It kept I went to the scene a few times and I would go to pick it up and it wouldn't pick up, and so I started getting pissed off. Hey Pro, how are you doing? I'm doing good, Josh. I'm just, I'm really happy that I released that Red Dead Online documentary, but I'm just down at the same time because it's just knowing that how Red Dead Online got screwed so badly. And the thing is, though, is I was reading, like, a lot of the comments on my Red Dead Online documentary, like, I was reading a lot of them today, and it's just like I predicted. Like, there's a lot of people in the comment section who are basically making the exact same points, and they didn't even watch the video. Just like I thought, but it's, what else are you gonna do? Some people you can't convince. You planning on doing a play for Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2? Yes, I want to do one. Dark Side of the Woods, thank you for the super chat. I want to do another playthrough part. What are we doing right now? Brandon, reselling something? I have Detroit Become Human, but I never really started it. Hope you're well, Pro. Long day at work. Glad to catch you live. Thank you, Retro Completionist. Thanks, man. Oh, I'm in the sign here. Capitale. Huh. Is it okay to be on GTA 5 right now? Why wouldn't it be? Thank you, V6 Mustang. Thanks for the super chat. Hi, bro. How are you, man? How are you, Mustang? Okay. Can you send me an invite back to the business then, Brandon? I didn't think you were selling it because there was no activity. The mission didn't start. Been having a lot more fun in this game, driving around in motorcycles and cars and trying to avoid the futuristic vehicles. Been a sub since you started. Haven't caught a stream of years and forever. Oh, well, thank you for being subscribed to me for so long, though, Junior. I do appreciate that. The what isn't missing in my... Oh. Okay, there was a spelling error. Thank you for telling me about that, man. I really hope I don't get striked over that video that I made yesterday. I didn't show anything in it. I just talked about what happened. You can see San Andreas written on a license plate in the, I guess they... Yeah, it's probably placeholders. Thank you, David. But I don't really want to talk about what's in the, the gameplay, guys, because of just, YouTubers have been getting struck. I think Dark Viper just had his strike revoked, so he's good now. But Gilly Master, I think, still has a strike. So it's I wonder if you take into account the enormous overhead Rockstar has to pay. Developers, IT specialists, and programmers are not cheap. What do you mean, though, Alvinor? I don't understand. Are you... Thank you for the super chat, but are you talking about, like, Red Dead Online? Is that what you're talking about? Because Rockstar is a billion-dollar company. They can have all the resources that they want, no problem. I don't see how they can't. I understand that, making updates isn't cheap, I get that. But this is a company that sold 170 million units on GTA 5. This is a company that sold 45 million units of Red Dead Redemption 2. This is a company that made hundreds of millions of dollars for shark cards. For all the money that they have, I'm sure they can get the resources together if they want. Love your content. First time watching you live. Thank you, AP. Oh, I'm not in an MC? Wait, what? I'm confused right now. Does anyone else need help selling here? If somebody needs help selling, just invite me right now. If not, I'll just sell some of my stuff then. Hey Pro, rarely get to catch you live stream, but I'm so happy to see you making videos that are awesome as always. Keep it up and hope your health, both physical and mental, stays up. Dude, your comment on my comment on your video is my most liked comment at 1,200 likes. I'm surprised. Thanks for the support, guys. You're definitely one of my favorite YouTubers. Thank you, Hesh. Oh, and I gotta get out of here too because I'm gonna get a copyright claim in a moment if I stay in there any longer. Yeah, I had to do that because I was gonna get a copyright claim. Really enjoyed your Red Dead documentary. Awesome work, Pro. Fully agree with you and love the clips you used. Thank you, George. Well, Dark Viper had his strike revoked recently. Yeah, and did you guys? I'm sure some people here. I know I've seen some comments, but have you? A lot of you guys watched my documentary? I know it's pretty long. I didn't try to make it long, but it's just I didn't use a script in that documentary. I didn't. The first part I used a little bit of a script, but the most part, 95% of that documentary was no script. It was just me speaking from the heart, and it was just talking about a bunch of things. But I hope people liked. I hope people liked my documentary, and it wasn't to start drama or anything. It was just I was just trying to change people's minds who defend Rockstar. Watched like half an hour of the Reddit Online documentary before my battery died. Also, thank you for my 68th heart. Also, $1 for the Saints Row reboot cringe 100%. Well, thank you, Mr. Waifu. Thanks, man. Hey, Professional, I just finished watching the Reddit Online documentary. Do you think Rockstar deserved... No, they didn't. They didn't. Thank you, Rangel Gaming. And this is the thing is... Oh, what happened, Brendan? Look, and this is the thing. As much as I dislike what a lot of things that Rockstar does, like with GTA Plus and abandonment of Red Dead Online, they didn't deserve that. What happened to them, GTA 6? Nobody deserves that. That was just completely unfair to the developer because you have to also understand that. Think about the average Rockstar developer, the average guy that spends so many years helping to make this product, only to have all of your hard work like that thrown out there, and now they have to completely redesign the source code. And a lot of Rockstar employees are not treated very well by their bosses. Like, you can read articles about how like the Rockstar employees had to like work like 6-7 days a week when Red Dead Redemption 2 was coming out. So there was I feel really bad for a lot of the developers, and Rockstar did not deserve that, what happened. And I hope they actually catch the hacker. I hope they catch him. Because that's just, that's just not good. And also, I think everybody should be pissed off at the hacker, because the hacker has caused GTA 6 to be delayed even more. So that's, it's going to happen, because the fact that the hacker has the source code, which is like the building blocks for the game. I didn't look at their post on Instagram, JM58, but I know Rockstar made some kind of message about it. Thank you for this. Thank you for the super chat. I'm just curious because you can actually see Take-Two's financial statements because they're a publicly traded company. But Alvinor, I didn't look at their financial statements. But I know that Rockstar Games and Take-Two Interactive, those companies are, some of the most richest video game developers out there. And also, when I look at other video games, I look at other companies, for instance, that don't even have like half the resources Rockstar does, and do a much better job of talking to their community and actually like support their games more. Like, I begin to question why Rockstar cannot do the same thing also. Like, for instance, why do so many video games have dedicated servers, but Rockstar doesn't? There are companies that don't even have like a third of Rockstar's money, and yet they have dedicated servers for their games. But GTA Online is still running on peer-to-peer hosting. How does that happen? Thank you for the super chat, though, Alvinor. Yeah, the Take-Two stock dropped a bit, but it wasn't that big of a deal because it went down by like $2 or $3 and then it went back up. So it's like, I was actually surprised that it only went down like $2. I thought it was going to go down more, possibly like $10. So I was a bit surprised that it wasn't worse. However, though, if there's more things that come out with this hacker, the stock could tumble. So that's like, do you like the music in GTA? Depends on the GTA. Generally, every GTA there's music that I like. But I think that GTA 5 is like one of the weakest soundtracks, personally. I think that like the best soundtrack is in Vice City. Thank you, Pirate. To everyone who knows me in chat, I love you. Well, thank you, Mr. Waifu. The Rockstar employees likely wanted to surprise the community with something special, so even just leaking clips would be hard on the devs. Yeah. And that's I don't understand how somebody is like, how some people are like excited about these leaks and stuff like that. Like, it's like the game is gonna be delayed for like another year probably because of this now. Can I join this time? Sure, Alizé. If you have me added, you can just join the session. Thank you for the super chat. I like the GTA 5 raps. They have the best bars. Well, I don't think I listened much to the rap on this game. I did listen to the rap a lot in Radio Los Santos in, like, San Andreas. Red Dead Redemption playthrough chronologically? You mean like doing Red Dead Redemption 2 first and then Red Dead Redemption 1 after? Maybe, I'll have to see. Thank you, Darkside, for the super chat. Left here. Who's the CEO I could talk to? Energy Lloyd is the CEO here right now. What's your rating for the Saints Row reboot? I haven't come to a final decision yet, but it's not going to be high. My verdict for the Saints Row reboot is probably going to be somewhere between like 6 to 4 out of 10. It's probably going to be either 5 or 4 out of 10. I can't see myself giving it a 6. Yeah, it's probably gonna be a 4 or 5. What do you think on Rockstar's response? Well, there's not really much of a response Rockstar can give right now. Rockstar's trying to deal with this situation right now, but who's the best GTA protagonist? I think Nico. Thank you, Pirate. I'll give the Saints Row reboot DLC a chance when it comes out, sure. Do I like the reboot more than 3 or 4? Thank you, Boost Theo. Then 1 and 2, definitely not. 1 and 2, Saints Row 1 and 2 destroys the Saints Row reboot 100%. If you want to know the other games, Saints Row 3 I think is still better than the reboot. Saints Row 4, I don't know. Saints Row 4 had like it didn't have as much cringe, but it was the only game that it was the only Saints Row game where you didn't fight gangs. That was Saints Row 4. So the city Santo Alesso, I think, is a better location than Steelport. I think that Steelport kind of sucked as a location personally. Like, I didn't think it was ever as good as Stillwater, because Steelport, a lot of the neighborhoods were just too similar to each other. They didn't really, like, when I think of the city of Steelport, there really is not that many districts that I can think of in Steelport. But, like, when I think of Stillwater, I just think of so many districts. I think of Saints Row, I think of the museum district, I think of downtown, I think of, like, that kind of Times Square area with all the billboards. I think of the suburbs, I think of the industrial area, the airport, I think of Shivington. So there's, like, a lot of these neighborhoods that are very memorable in, like, Saints Row 2, but then when you think of Steelport, the neighborhoods, there's not really any memorable neighborhoods. It's not like Saints Row, yeah, it's not like Saints Row 2. The university, right, I forgot about the university. That was a new district in Saints Row 2 also. I don't know that game, Tekka. What is that game? If I could bring back any GTA character in the next game, who would it be? I would say that in the next GTA game, probably El Rubio. Because if it is, and I don't even really want to talk about the leaks, I'm just scared of getting, like, a copyright strike. But I think there's a strong chance he might come back, because if it's taking place where it is taking place, in that city, there's a strong, and since it's like, since he's a drug lord, there's a strong chance he might come back. Tommy Vercetti does not exist in the HD universe, though. No, I don't want Nico to come back. And the reason I don't want Nico to come back is because Nico's story is pretty much finished. Like, I can't see him going back. Like, he pretty much gave up on crime, kind of. He was like a gun for hire, but he kind of gave up on it at the end. And so I can't really picture him, like, you know, coming back in their GTA game. But also, like, I see, like, people saying, like, oh, I want them to bring back Luis, and I want them to bring back, like, Nico, or I want them to bring back, like, Trevor, and, you know, people like that. But just think about it. What happened the last time Rockstar brought back a GTA protagonist? What happened when they brought back Johnny? How did that end? So I don't think you want another GTA character being brought back again, because they could ruin them. And so I think the GTA characters should stay where they are right now. I don't think that they should be brought back, because there's potential for them to be ruined. Like, if they look at what they did to Johnny, I can't imagine what they would do to Nico. So they do something stupid. What's the better DLC, GTA: The Lost and Damned or The Ballad of Gay Tony? Well, I would say that The Ballad of Gay Tony has more action, like, you know, more, like, crazy scenes, like, more gunfights and more, like, you know, the tank, the APC, and, like, the attack helicopter, parachutes, so it has, like, some more crazier scenes, some more over-the-top scenes. The Lost and Damned focuses more on, like, oh, this mission with the passenger, but the Lost and Damned focuses more on, like, kind of like squad play, I would say, which I think is unique, because the thing is, every single Grand Theft Auto game, you're typically, like, driving a car, but, like, in that one, you're driving a motorcycle and you're a biker. So I thought the whole premise of that was unique. Oh man, this mission is, yeah, this mission's really annoying.
can I help you with? I take it this isn't purely a social call. Of course not. You're in trouble and you need my help. No problem.
Ah. Damn. Yeah, I cannot stand this drive a lot of times. Oh, I think I missed a super chat here. What do I think is the most, thank you, Agent 3, for that super chat. What do I think is the most annoying character in GTA 3, Vice City, GTA San Andreas, GTA 4, GTA The Lost and Damned, The Ballad of Gay Tony, and GTA 5? The most annoying GTA character of all time? Probably Manny Escuela. Manny, there's, in GTA 4. For the 3D universe, who would be the most annoying character in the 3D universe? Most annoying character in the 3D games? Probably Maria. Maria, I would say, is probably the most annoying character, yeah. Maria is probably the most annoying character in the 3D universe. In the HD universe, is probably Manny. In the 3D universe, is Maria. That's Salvatore's wife. Got this. Oh, come on. There had to be a rock right there. Never been a fan of this mission. Okay, there we go. If the characters in the 3D universe don't exist in the HD universe, why do they keep bringing back Fernando Martinez and Laszlo? Those guys are radio hosts, and even so, those radio hosts are not the same radio hosts that are in the older GTA games. They're based on them. It's like, basically, think about Captain Price in Modern Warfare 1 through 3, like the original Modern Warfare games, and then think of Captain Price in Modern Warfare 2019. Captain Price in Modern Warfare 2019 and Modern Warfare 2022 is based on the original Captain Price in the COD 4 and Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, but it's not the same Captain Price, even though it's based on the same character, so it's a different universe. So that's that. So Laszlo in this game, in GTA 5, is not the same Laszlo that you hear on the radio in Vice City. He's inspired by that same Laszlo, but it's not the same Laszlo. And besides, like, when you think about it, hang on, like... Yeah, and also, Laszlo, you know, how old is Laszlo even in GTA 5? Laszlo looks like he's in his mid-40s, like in GTA 5, maybe late 30s. But Laszlo is in Vice City, he's on the radio. And how old is he in Vice City? In Vice City, he's in his mid-20s, I would say. So, you know, how old would he be? He'd have to be like, you know, he'd have to be in his 60s then, like, or maybe no 50s, around there. Yeah, so it's not the same Laszlo that's in Vice City. Okay, all the helicopters been taken. Okay. Let me stop here, take a look at the comments here. The biker gangs just seem boring till you told me about them. Yeah, and I think the bikers are some of the best part of the GTA world. It's why I made this character a biker character. Thank you, Pirate. Hey, Primao 31. How are you, man? Thank you for the super chat. It's the streets, Manny. Yep. Thanks, George. Jonathan Perez. Hey, Pro, I just wanted to ask, do you have an idea of why King Courtney didn't get killed by Claude or Mike from GTA Advance? Just Claude, I guess, has never got a chance to kill him. And Claude didn't know where King Courtney was, also. King Courtney talked to him on the payphone, so that's why. Do you think the HD and the 3D universes concept is dumb? No. I think it's generally a good idea for developers to eventually do reboots because they could make like a new universe, but they have to be careful when they do a reboot too because you don't want to ruin it. And like, you know, perfect example of that is Saints Row. Best GTA? My favorite GTAs personally, GTA 4 Agent 3. I like GTA 4 because I just like the New York setting. I like the dark criminal underworld setting to that game. When is the new money guide coming out? I am going to be starting to work on that. So now that I finished the Red Dead Online documentary, I'm going to be free to work on my next lore video on the Saints Row review and the new GTA money guide. And this GTA money guide, guys, when I make this GTA money guide, this is going to be one of my best money guides ever. This might be my ultimate best money guide of all time when I make this one. And it's going to be really, really good. I have a pretty good idea of what the money guide is going to be already. I don't want to spoil it, but it's going to be really good. But you're going to have to give me a few weeks because I have multiple projects, but I have not forgotten about it. And I have multiple videos I'll be releasing along the weeks, and eventually I will get to it and I'll make it. But it'll be really good. It'll be very helpful. It'll help a lot of people out, and it's probably going to be my final money guide. Like, I probably won't make another money guide ever again after it because I pretty much covered everything that I can think of in the game. And so, unless there's like a new business or something, then I'll make a new money guide. But that'll probably be my last money guide when I do make that. But Laszlo voices himself. The differences in the universes is dumb. I guess. I didn't even know that was the same voice actor. You're right, there's Laszlo in He worked for Rockstar. Was also a real guy. But yeah, it is a different universe, though. That's what I'll say. I mean, look at Grove Street, for instance. If you don't believe that it's a different universe, just look at Grove Street. Grove Street in this game looks nothing like Grove Street did in San Andreas. Grove Street in San Andreas is way bigger than Grove Street in this one. It was much smaller. The houses were smaller. No, I didn't. At least not yet, Clutch. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Mark. Did you think for a second the leaks were real concerning how convincing it was? I wasn't really convinced by the leaks, not until I saw Rockstar copyright striking and Take-Two Interactive copyright striking. Then I knew they were real. Thank you, David. When's the next part of Modern Warfare 2 Remastered? That will be tomorrow. Tomorrow. Finally tomorrow. I'm so sorry I've been delayed on that. I know it's been almost 2 weeks since the last part, and I'm really sorry about that. I've just been so busy, but I will finish Modern Warfare 2. We're going to finish that. Yes, I do definitely think that they will have an impact on the next GTA's development. Yes. Hope you're doing well, Pro. I am RPG Gameplay. How are you, man? Yeah, I don't know why the new Saints Row characters are like college kids. I don't understand that personally. I think that was a mistake. The Winter DLC? Winter DLC might actually be the final DLC. We'll have to see. But the Winter DLC is going to be a new business. That's what I'm pretty confident in. It's going to be a new property and a new business. What it's going to be, I don't know, but I think it's going to be a new property. But remember what I said in my Red Dead Online documentary, guys. Rockstar is running out of room to make properties. They're going to run out of room. If the hacker is outside America, there might be some problems depending on the country that he's in. A gunship in GTA Online? What do you mean, like an attack helicopter? I mean, they already have plenty of those. How long has GTA 5 been out for? It's been out for 9 years now. 9 years. Wow, this game came out 9 years ago, right?
Cryptocurrency.
Okay, this will be my last business to help you sell, Mark, and I'll help the next person sell. Rubio will be a great addition to GTA 6. He's the coolest GTA Online antagonist, in my opinion. He's cruel and scary, which would make him a great character. Yeah, and the thing is, though, is Rubio was like more like a character that you would see in like some of the older GTA games, and that was a good thing, by the way. That's a good comment. Because, like, you know, some of the characters that, like, you had in, like, I think some of the characters in GTA 5 were, like, really bad. And, like, bad, I mean, they weren't well-designed. And, like, for instance, what's his name? Like, Devin Weston. I think Devin Weston was, like, the worst GTA antagonist of all time. And by worst, I don't mean that he was evil or anything. I mean that he just sucked. Like, he was kind of evil, but he was, like, he was boring. Like, Devin Weston was just, he was annoying. He wasn't like, you know, you look at like Dimitri, for instance, in GTA 4. Like, Dimitri was a pretty scary guy. And like, Devin Weston, comparing to Devin Weston is like a joke. So that's, and then you had, like, Avon Hertz. Avon Hertz was, like, a really bad, I didn't like him. I didn't like his design at all. But Rubio was, like, a character that I really liked. I liked his design. And Rubio had minimal appearances, but they were all really good. And so you know he's like this big, powerful, scary drug lord. Wow, surprised that didn't flip over too. Guys, please let me drive one of the boats. I want to drive one of the boats though. Almost over there. I'm trying not to use any air vehicles. I've been more entertained with just driving around personally. Thank you, for the super chat. In your Red Dead Redemption documentary, why were you scared Why were you scared of the statistics of GTA vs. Red Dead? What do you mean I was scared of the statistics? I wasn't scared of the statistics. I showed the statistics on what they were. I do appreciate the super chat, but my point with the Red Dead Online versus GTA statistics, my point about them, is that statistics can be used to try to push any certain view. Like, people can manipulate statistics to try to push any different kinds of viewpoints. And so when people use the statistic, like, they use Grand Theft Auto 5 against Red Dead Online, I don't think that that's like a fair comparison, because Grand Theft Auto 5 is both the single player and the online, versus Red Dead Online is just the online. So you're comparing, like, the search results for Red Dead Online versus GTA 5, which somebody could be searching up either the online or the single player. So I think more of an accurate comparison, Red Dead Redemption 2 versus GTA versus GTA 5. Dimitri was demented. Devin does yoga. Big change, Rockstar. Yep. Rubio's net worth 55 capitale. Pro is not only a friend of mine, but he did a heck of a job with the Red Dead Online documentary. Even if Red Dead Online isn't for you, understanding corporate greed is important. You never know if a game we love is next. Thanks. Thank you, Young Hebrew. Did you watch my whole documentary? I hope that you enjoyed it. Saints Row 4? Yeah, I'll do a playthrough of Saints Row 4 one day. I'll do it. I mean, I could make an outfit. I just have to wait until Valentine's Day again for this character. But I can make the outfit. I mean, the AC-130 gunship? Oh. I mean, they kind of already do have the AC-130 in the games, the Bombushka. The Bombushka kind of can do that. Is GTA 5 considered a success? Yes. 170 million units sold. You know, has a lot of players to this day still on it. Yeah, it's definitely a success. Well, the next GTA, I think the online should focus more on role-playing, like, as gangsters, and not make it very grindy. The Modern Warfare 2 beta? Yeah, I did. I liked it. Who's worse, Massimo, Torini, or Devin? I would say Massimo is even more worse than Devin. Like, well, if you mean which one is less interesting, I think Devin is a bit more interesting than Massimo. Yeah, probably, because Massimo only makes appearances in two missions, but Massimo is at least like a high-ranking like mafia member. Like, he's the representative of the Sicilian mafia in like Liberty City. So I think Massimo is definitely a more scary character. Prediction for the Modern Warfare 2 campaign. I think that I was trying to think the cartel because the cartel plays a pretty big role in Modern Warfare 2. I think that the cartel in Modern Warfare 2 are probably gonna have some link to the Al-Qatala. That's probably what's gonna happen. And then Hadir, I think that Hadir is actually Al-Assad, so I think that's gonna be a big part of the storyline as well. No, I'm on the PS5. Do I think Raul will come back in the campaign? Raul? Who are you talking about? You mean Menendez? No. The cartel in Modern Warfare 2 are called Las Almas. Oh, what does that mean? The something, I know. I know Las means the. I doubt Raul Menendez will come back because he's a different universe, so no. Can you invite me to the business when you get the chance? Well, they also added Rourke to Vanguard, but or to Warzone, and Rourke was from Call of Duty Ghosts. No, I'm not from the UK. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. Oh, Las Almas translates to the souls. Okay. They had Zakhaev in Black Ops Cold War. They had him in Black Ops Cold War, yes, but Menendez does not make an appearance in the Well, I mean, technically, I guess. I'm just trying to think right now.
You doing that?
It's. Oh, there's a truck. Let me drive the truck then. I mean, I could just do that for you. Will I ever play The Last of Us on my channel? Sure. I maybe one day I could do a playthrough of it. Okay, so I'm trying to think right now. A lot of the Call of Duty games are linked. Does Vanguard in Modern Warfare take place? I'm gonna get hit. Yep. Oh, glad I was wearing a helmet, right? Okay, so I'm trying to think right here. So, Modern Warfare and Black Ops Cold War are in the same universe. They are. That has been confirmed. If Black Ops and Cold War and Modern Warfare are the same universe, then, and Vanguard is also in the same universe as that, that means that Reznov and Dimitri exist also in the Vanguard universe, which means that the Vanguard characters got Dimitri and Reznov killed when they found the info on Project Nova. So technically, I guess yes, technically Den Raoul does exist in the Modern Warfare universe, but yeah, I don't think that, you know, I don't think he's gonna come back though. Yeah. Yeah, Vanguard is a bit of a mess. Oh, Shepard is gonna come back. Yeah, he's been confirmed. I think people told me on Modern Warfare 2 stream that Makarov has been confirmed also. Worst grief or encounter you dealt with? Probably the time I got threatened on GT Online. It happened like 5 years ago, and then the guy knocked me offline. That... Thank you, Soprano. But I'll say that, you know, I don't think Vanguard is a bad game because it's like, it's in the World War II setting. I think that's different. Like, I don't think the problem is too many World War II games. I think the problem is that nobody makes good World War II games anymore. Like, look at Sniper Elite 5. That's like an example of a good World War II game that came out recently. Do you expect Shepard to betray the squad again? That's not going to happen. I can't picture Shepard betraying you again because people are going to see it coming. I think that Shepard might actually not be the traitor this time. I think the traitor might actually be Colonel Norris. That's who the traitor might be. Remember Colonel Norris is that guy that Captain Price yelled at? Is it true district managers get treated better? Well, district managers have to report to the regional manager. So they have a manager above them. So there's, you know, there's supervisor, then there's store manager, then there's district manager, then there's regional manager. And I don't know if there's anybody above regional manager. Probably is somebody there. Thank you, Soprano. The traitor could be the new guy, Alejandro Vargas, because in a dialogue he talks about the leader of Alma's leading soldiers. Well, you do have a point. You have a point. One of the traitors might actually be like one of the Task Force 141 members. That might be a thing too. That's also a possibility. Did Shepard also betray the Rangers in Modern Warfare 2 after betraying Task Force? He did, because Shepard, remember that Shepard is the one who helped cause World War III. So World War III was caused by Makarov and by General Shepard. You know, Makarov is like, you know, I would say Makarov is 70% of the reason that World War III happened, but like 30% of the reason is also General Shepard. So it's both of them had a responsibility in starting the conflict, remember that Shepard wanted Washington D.C. to get destroyed. Remember that he did, and the reason he wanted Washington D.C. to get destroyed was so that he would get a blank check. So then he would pretty much have all the power that he wants. And so the Rangers kind of foiled that plan at the end when they stopped the Russians, and they you know, put out the flares and they stopped the planes from hitting it. No, I don't drive a sports car. I don't need a sports car. I'm not a car guy personally. Makarov started World War III by doing the airport massacre. He did, but oh no, this mission. But how did Makarov start World War III with that? By killing Alan and leaving his body there. So it was, and how did Makarov know about Alan being an American agent? General Shepard told him. General Shepard told Makarov about Alan. That's how he knew. Look, see? Backing up actually makes you go faster than going forward up the hills with this. I actually have a whole lore video on General Shepard. If you want to know more about General Shepard and you want to know about, like, you know, the whole reason he betrayed Task Force 141, it's the video on my channel, General Shepard's Betrayal Explained. No, I don't really date Jimmy. Thank you for subscribing, DC. No, Kamarov isn't going to betray you. Nah, no, I can't see Kamarov betraying you. Can I make a lore video on Don Percival? Possibly, but if I make a lore video on Don Percival, it's not going to be just on Don Percival. Instead, it's going to be about Merryweather entirely, like the entire faction of Merryweather. Who's worse, Dmitri, Raskolov, or Dutch from Red Dead Redemption 2? Dmitri. Because Dutch maybe had some values at the start, but he completely lost them over time and just went crazy. But I think personally, like my lore video that I made on Dutch several years ago, I think that Dutch always was like a bad person, but I think he kind of hid that. And as things didn't start going his way, I think the more of the real person of him, his real personality started coming out. Hey Pro, did you find it cringe and how the new GTA DLC, every character you would talk to about the gas prices and heat waves, it was so cringe to me? A bit. I guess Rockstar's kind of mixing in like modern day things into it. But it still wasn't as cringe as, like, you know, Saints Row's dialogue. Thank you, Alex, for the super chat. And thank you, Drunken Pirate. Thanks for the super chat as well. Thanks, man. How are you? Oh, sorry about that. Do you think we'll see Kamarov and Nikolai? Well, Kamarov and Nikolai are both in Modern Warfare 2019, so I don't see why they wouldn't come back in that one. I'm really curious whether World War III will be in Modern Warfare 2022, because remember in Modern Warfare 2 it was there. It was so I'm curious whether the new game is going to have that, like have some big war that's going to happen like halfway through the story. I wish you could choose how you supply and sell product. Oh yeah, that'd be great. That would be great. Will I do a lore video on Catalina from GTA? Yeah, I could do one on her one day. I could probably I probably won't do a video on Catalina. Instead, I'll probably do it on Claude, and I'll probably put Catalina in that video. Thank you, Suspect, for the thank you for the super chat. Who's the CEO? What CEO? Learn Sophistry is the CEO here. Well, Brandon, Call of Duty Ghosts 2 is probably never gonna come out.
Traffic was horrible. No fucking way!
Okay, let me try to get over these drops here. Analyzing evil on different characters from the from different games of the series. Well, I definitely think that Dimitri is the most evil GTA character of all time.
What the hell? Oh
The Johnny Klebitz video. I'll try to. I'm working on a Lost MC lore video, but the lore video that I make right now, it's not gonna be about Johnny. It's more gonna be about the Lost, but Johnny is gonna be part of it. And I'm gonna and I'm going to. I'll try to have it up within a week, but I can't make any promises. I don't know if something will delay me. Avon is kind of like a joke. Like, yes, he's kind of evil, but he's kind of like a joke. Like, I never took Avon seriously. I just thought he was kind of a stupid villain. Yeah, well, when I first saw that cutscene with Johnny, I actually could not believe that he was dead. I didn't think that he was dead at first.
What the hell?
I think Dimitri was more a bit different because Dimitri didn't just betray people for money, he just betrayed people because he liked doing it. Kiflam, brother. Is business diversification a good idea? What do you mean when you... By business diversification, do you mean that, like, taking, like, a business and then trying to diversify that business, like, with just different ways to make money? Because income diversification is basically when you make money from different sources, but by business diversification, are you just talking about, like, taking, like, a business and trying to expand it to other things? If that's your question, I think that, I think that business diversification would be okay. I think it would be okay for a business to always, you know, offer diverse products, but not to abandon their main thing that makes them money. Like when you think about you know, GTA and like Red Dead Online, like there's no reason that Rockstar couldn't like have, you know, Rockstar's like one business technically, but there's no reason why Rockstar couldn't have developed Red Dead Online. They have plenty of resources, you know, they claim they need resources, but you know, this is a billion-dollar company at the same time. I don't think that developing Red Dead Online would have taken away from GTA 6 or GTA Online, and if it did, you just hire more people, that's it. But Rockstar didn't want to do that. How is your property doing? Your rate staying stable? Well, I have to sign a lease. I have to sign a lease. This month, for another year. And what happened was, the apartment manager was supposed to call me today, and he never called me to negotiate my lease. But basically, what happened is my lease is going to go up by 10%, so my rent is going to go up by 10%, which I thought that was like an insane amount for it to go up by. And what happened was I'm going to be talking to the manager when he gets back. When he calls me, whenever that is, tomorrow or another day. I'm going to try to see if I can contact him tomorrow. But basically, I tried to negotiate for a lower rate, and the reason is because the apartment complex that I live at, you don't pay for utilities, and so you have water, electricity, and gas that is provided for you with your rent, so you can use that as much as you want. You don't get charged more for that. The only thing you do pay for is TV and internet if you want that. But water, gas, and electricity comes with the utilities. However, though, the apartment complex, they actually justified raising the rates based on inflation, and they were saying that utilities are also included with the rent. But the thing is, I can actually use that to my advantage because my apartment, I'm not at my apartment 4 out of the 12 months. So 2 months, I visit my family typically in New York in the winter time for 2 months, and I visit my family in New York in the summertime for 2 months. So 4 months out of the 12 months, I'm not here, so I'm not using utilities. And so I can basically try to use that to negotiate with them and say that, hey, I'm not paying for these utilities at this time for 4 months, so I don't think you should raise the rent on me that much. Yes, but I think that every business should the guy that was asking about business diversification, I think that every business should should always try to diversify their money and try to expand to other things, but don't as long as you have the resources to do that, obviously. Why do you rent if you own a property? A landlord shouldn't have to rent. That's a great question, Mark. The reason for that is because I don't want to buy an apartment. So I don't want to buy an apartment and be in debt and stuff like that. I purchased a house, which the house I'm making money from rent, and I don't need a house personally. I don't need a lot of room. I'm happy with an apartment. I'm happy with that. That's all I pretty much need. And so I have a nice apartment. I rent the apartment, but I also own a property that I rent. So it's a little confusing, but it's because I don't need, a house. I don't need to live in a house. I don't need that. And so I figured that I would, get a house, and I would use it as an investment. And so I would make money from a rental that way. And basically, the rent that I get from my house, pretty much, it covers my entire rent, and I do have some, spending money left over from it. So that's it covers my entire rent. So it does help greatly. Passive income, that's right. So it's business and grinding in real life, pretty much. Well, thank you for the comment project, but I guess. Okay, Sophistry. If you save 50,000, how would you invest it to grow? Honestly, I would probably save it even more. I would just keep saving money. With that $50,000, I don't really think that there's only two ways that I can think of you really making money from that $50,000. and that would be, you definitely don't have enough to buy a property with that price. At least most places. And if you do find something under $50,000, it's not going to be a good property. That's what I'll say about it. But with $50,000, you know, there's two things that you could do. You could either try to buy a bunch of things and try to resell them, but that's risky because you don't know if you're going to succeed in selling those things, and you don't know how long you're going to sit on those things. Or you could try to basically put that in the stock market, but that's also a bit of a gamble. So there are a few things that you could do with that money, but or you could put the money and you could you could use it as like a down payment for like a house. So you could use that instead. And what you can do is you put a down payment on the house, and then what you do is you rent out the house. And when you rent out the house, you put the rent a little bit above your mortgage, so a little bit above your mortgage rate. So pretty much the house will pay off itself. So that's like something that you can do, and then you can use the house as a rental property also later on. You know that. You know, I don't really have a mortgage. You know, I use pretty much my life savings, and you know, I don't have that much left over. But it's you know, I don't regret it because I use it as an investment for myself. So. In studying economics and business, and do you have good? I'm studying economics and business. Do you have any good tips? And they. Sorry, guys. Yes, diversifying income is always a good idea. Basically, that means income not just from one source. But thank you for that super chat, suspect. Do you drink milk? That's a weird question. I had cereal this morning. But like, person asking me about like tips on like business and economics. The thing is though, is that I don't really personally think that you need to go to, you know, business, like, you know, I don't think you need to study, you know, business to know what you're doing. Because I think that personally, what I think is, and this is just my personal opinion, guys, don't take this as fact, but I personally think that experience is always what matters the most, more than education. I'm not saying education is useless, but I'm saying I think experience and learning from doing things yourself, I think, is more important than like, or more helpful, I should say, than like education, because there are people that start up businesses and they become millionaires later in life and they never went to business school. They didn't do any of that. But, yeah, there's, I don't know what tips I could give you. I don't know what business you plan on starting up, but I'll tell you something though. If I was to start a business, personally, if I was to start up a business, I would want to start up a business where I don't have to rely on other people. That's what. I would start a business where I can run everything myself. That is what I would do. And the reason that I would not, I don't want a business where I have to rely on somebody else is because you don't know how well that business is going to be doing, and you're going to be responsible for somebody else's paycheck. And so it's that if the business is really bad, you know, you're going to have to fire that person or let them go, and then that's like a horrible thing to do and you feel bad about that. So I personally would not get involved in like a business where you have to rely on other people unless you know it's going to be very profitable and you can like pay everyone off. I would run something where I can run everything on my own and, you know, not have to rely on people. But that's also one reason. Another reason that I would not want to run a business where I have like, you know, have to rely on other people is because of just my experiences. Working in retail, like I worked in retail for 6 years, and I've seen really unreliable people, like really, really unreliable people, and people that do not help, throw all the work on you, basically slack off, you know, just, you know, it's just, I've had some really bad experiences. I know there's hard workers out there, don't get me wrong, but I just don't want the stress of hiring somebody, going through all of that, for then to, you know, potentially deal with somebody that's, you know, not going to help. and then I have to let that person go, and then I have to find somebody else, and it's just a nightmare. But like some businesses that you can actually start up on your own is like, one person wrote vending machines. Vending machines are a business that you can start on your own, and they don't require that much of an investment. You have to spend a bit of money, but it's not like buying a property at all. It's saving way more money than buying a property. And you can go to Costco and you can buy like a bunch of drinks and snacks in bulk for cheap. You can put them in the vending machine, but basically then you have to decide on where to place the vending machine. You could go into like a bunch of stores, and you could tell the store owner like, hey, I want to put a vending machine in your store or something like that. I will give you a cut of something like of the sales, something like that. But make sure you decide to put it in a high traffic area. But personally, what I personally think is a very profitable like business that you can run pretty much by yourself and you don't need anybody else is a laundromat. A laundromat is a business that I think pretty much anybody can run, and I don't think you really need that much experience. If you know how to fix machines, it's going to help you tremendously. But I don't think that a laundromat is really a business that requires like a lot of like expertise and stuff like that. It does require work, don't get me wrong, but people think of like laundromats as like rundown places, but there's more than that. Like laundromats can be a hit or a miss. Basically, your laundromat can completely fall apart and make no money, and it can be like a stupid decision, or it can be like a really good decision. But what's important is location. Location is the most important thing to a laundromat. It's the most important thing. Like if you build your laundromat like in the suburbs, that's like the worst place that you can build your laundromat, because it's like people typically in the suburbs, most people have a laundry machine in their houses, and so if you build a laundromat in some small town in the suburbs, I think it's a really bad idea, and I think your laundromat is going to go out of business. However, if you build a laundromat like somewhere like in an urban area, like a city, and you build it in like an area near apartment buildings, and if you do some research in the area, and you find out those apartment buildings do not have like a washing room or something like that, there's a high chance people will come by and wash at your place. You could also build it near a college if there's college dorms, because they probably won't have laundry machines in their college dorms, and so they need to go and wash their clothes somewhere. And so that might be it. And people think laundromats are like, not like good investments, but people would be surprised on how much money laundromats can bring in. Like some laundromats can bring in $4,000 to $5,000 like a month from that. And you do want to provide some good customer service though, so you do want to be there at the time. Like you don't want to just sit there and just not ever be there. Because people think you just don't have to do anything, but machines break. Sometimes you have to just talk to customers. Sometimes something gets stained on like a customer's like clothes. So there's different things to that. But like a laundromat is generally like a business you can run on your own. You don't really need anybody else with you. If machines break, you can hire a repairman. But there's that. I really love your videos, Pro. What's my favorite movie? My favorite movie is probably Scarface. Older movies. My favorite newer movie is probably Equalizer. Yeah. A car wash would be easier to run. Yeah, probably. Yeah, a car wash would probably be easier. Car wash potentially would probably get you more customers also, because everybody needs to wash their car eventually. Where not everybody, yeah, well, more people are going to go into car washes than, a lot of people have laundromats or laundry machines these days. So yeah, a car wash is also a decent business. How about car retailing? What do you mean, buying and selling cars? Buying and selling cars would only be profitable if you have a lot of money. If you already have a lot of money, then it's going to be profitable. If you don't have a lot of money, I don't think it's really going to be profitable. Because think about it this way: you're going to be buying a car, and then you're gonna have to try to buy a car for a really good deal, something that you can sell it for. And then you're going to want to try to hope that you can sell that car later on. You might not even sell that car. You might be sitting on that car for years before somebody actually buys it from you. So that's that. And also, buying and selling cars, you need to have way more knowledge. Like, you need to know about the cars themselves. And you don't even really need education, really, for that. Like, plenty of people know a lot about cars, and they don't even, go to college for that. So, but you need to have knowledge about cars if you're going to be selling cars. Like, you need to know, how these cars run. You need to know, like, how to fix cars and stuff like that in specifics. So you can't be a car salesman and not know about cars. That's stupid. But, like, a laundromat, you don't really need to know like much, and like a car wash, you don't even need to know much either. If you do have some mechanical skills, like if you know how to fix machines, that'll help you a lot. If like a laundry machine breaks at your laundromat, that'll help. But you don't really need to have that much knowledge. Like there's this one guy I watch on YouTube called Investment Joy, and he owns like a few laundromats, I believe, and he did like a really good job with that. He made like a lot of passive income from that. So that's like that's a business that. But laundromats are not cheap businesses to start up. They're very expensive, very, very expensive. But once you start up a laundromat, though, you do need to put work into it. But it's not extremely complicated to run. That's the thing about it. So that's the pros of a laundromat. Stock market investing, it's stock market, like basically I'll tell you guys. So I do the stock market like occasionally. And so what happened was I started doing the stock market like right when COVID happened, like, and this was like March of 2020, April 2020. That's like when I first started doing stocks, so like more than 2 years ago. And what happened was I would buy and sell like stocks. I would try to research the companies a little bit. I made some stupid purchases. I did. So like whenever anybody starts up on the stock market, you're gonna make a stupid purchase. It's eventually gonna happen to everybody. But I made some stupid purchases and I did lose some money. Not a lot. Like it wasn't like an insane amount. It was just more like money of like trying testing it out and just trying to get used to it. But what happened was the money that I did have in the stock market, I had made a decent profit from it over 2 years, and I still had that money in the stock market like 2 years later. Like I didn't withdraw it, and so I just buy like a stock, and then eventually like maybe like whenever I feel like I'm gonna get a profit from it, I sell it, depending on what it is. But I've bought and sold some stocks for some time, and I'm not an expert, so don't try to like quote me as like giving advice or anything like that. I'm not an expert, but I'm just telling you my experience is I bought and sold some stocks over 2 years, and I did make a little bit of a profit. I didn't make an insane profit, but I did make a little bit of a profit. And then what happened was the last few months I lost all my profits, everything, like the whole thing, everything. All my profits are gone of everything that I put in the stock market in 2 years. But I didn't lose any money, and I didn't lose any money because I pretty much broke even. The money that I originally put in 2 years ago, I still have that in, but like everything else is at a loss, like everything. All of my stocks, everything, and they're all so down. Like I have 5 stocks right now, and they're all like really down, and I'm just gonna hold on to it. Some people are selling it, but I'm just gonna hold on to it and just pray for the best. But that's it. But that's the thing about the stock market, is that the stock market requires some skill, but it also requires luck, because you don't know what can happen. So there can be some unforeseen like event that can just change the market, and you'll get screwed basically. But the best tip that I can give, and like I said, I'm not an expert, I'm not giving financial advice, but the best tip that I can give is that do not put money in the stock market that you are not willing to lose. That is the best tip that I can give. Don't put money that you're not willing to lose. Like put money that you are willing to accept as a loss if something bad happens. So that's that. Don't put your life savings in the stock market. Nobody should do that. That's a recipe for disaster. Have you thought about playing Cyberpunk? Thank you, Tanner. I did, but I'm just not into futuristic games personally, Tanner. Thank you for the super chat. Speculate to accumulate. Thank you, Black Tacoma. If I'm pronouncing your name correctly, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the suggestion, Pearl. I'll use my $50,000 as a payment for a house and have renters pay it for me. Yeah, but just thank you, Suspect, for the super chat. But it's like I said, be careful with the money that you have. I'm not a financial expert, but that's just me giving my opinion. So like I said, be careful where you put your money and where you invest your money. But if I was you, if I was you personally, what I would do with that $50,000 is I wouldn't even spend it. I would just hold on to it, and I would keep saving more and more money, like more and more over time, and then eventually I'd put like a really big down payment down, like more than that. But if you feel like you want to put it down now, then go ahead. But like I said, I'm not trying to give financial advice. That's just That's just that. But you can. A lot of people do that. A lot of people, you know, they get a mortgage, they put a down payment on a house, and then they rent the house out. They rent the house because a lot of, I personally think that if you have a place to live, like if you have a place to live, I don't see why you have to move in right away, because you could just have somebody else live there. You can rent out the house and you can have renters pay it off over time. So that's like, you know, that's a way for you to make money off of that house while you're trying to pay off the mortgage. So that's like that's that. But I hope that, you know, I hope that, like, you know, my advice, if anything, has helped you out. But like I said, I'm not an expert, but that's just my personal opinion. I'm 13. Renting ain't as simple as it sounds. You might get some scumbag who won't pay the rent and rip out all of your copper wiring, or you could get a model family. Yes, that is true. You are 100% right on that, Dylan. That's the risk. But what do you think will happen to the hacker? Lawsuit and possibly jail time also. Thank you, Bumpa and Tanner. But look, about renting is, what I recommend you do is, I would recommend to go, if you're gonna rent out your house, I can give you a few tips about that, because I do rent out a property. But what I would say is, if you are gonna rent out a house to somebody, what I would suggest to do, go to a property management company and have them do tenant placement for you. Basically what tenant placement is where they will find a tenant for you. So they'll do a bunch of interviews, they'll advertise the house for you, they'll take a bunch of pictures of it, and they will try to find like a tenant for you. And then they'll go in then when they find somebody, they'll screen them, they'll do an interview, and then they'll have them sign a lease. And basically what you have to do then is the first month of your rent, you have to give that company that helped you like 80% of the first month's rent. But then after that, you keep 100% of the rent every month. But you are responsible for managing the house. Now, if you don't want to be responsible for managing the house, then you can pay the property management company, but they can take somewhere between 10 to 20% of like your rent, sometimes even more. But it's typically like around that. But if it's only one house, I don't think you really need a property management company. I think you can run it on yourself. Like, I run my house on my own. I don't need a property management company. But running like a rental property is not easy. Like, people think that it's just where you just basically have tenants and they just sit in your house and they don't and you don't do anything and you just collect checks every month. It's not like that. Sometimes there might be like a few months where nothing happens and you don't have to do anything. But then other times there might be some disaster might happen, and it might not even be your tenant's fault. There might be some plumbing issue. Something might go wrong with the plumbing, and they need your help. You know, sprinkler might break. Something might be wrong with the wiring. You know, stuff like that. So there's always like something that could break, something that could go wrong, and then you're responsible pretty much for, you know, fixing that stuff. It depends on your lease, because on certain leases, certain tenants will be responsible for certain things in the house. But generally, like, the landlord would be responsible for like a lot of the stuff in the house. Like for me, for instance, what did I do? I provide, like, I buy air filters for my house, like for the furnace. I change the filters in like the house. So I buy the air filters and I change them. I don't have to do that, but I do that just, you know, to be nice to my tenants. I took care of the sprinklers, and in my lease, I'm pretty sure I'm not responsible for the lawn care. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are, but I still, like, I'm still the guy who set up their sprinklers, got it all done for them, and I do these things to help to, you know, be nice to my tenants, and, you know, so they have a good impression of me. So you always want to build relations with your tenants. But yeah, you gotta fix things sometimes. But what I recommend, and this is what I say, if you're gonna buy a rental property, buy a new house, buy something new. And what I mean by new is I mean a house built within the last 20 years. You know, it doesn't have to be brand new, built within the last 20 years. And the reason that you want to buy a house within the last 20 years, if you're going to do a rental, this is my opinion, is that if you buy a house within the last 20 years, that house is going to have the chances of it having problems are much less than like a house built in the 1950s. Like, there's very few, there's not going to be as many problems that you have to deal with if you buy like a new house. So that's why I recommend to buy like a new one if you're going to use it a rental personally. But, you know, about the tenants is what I'll say about that, there's a few. You should try out Halo one day. I could, Terrell. Thank you for the super chat. Hey Pro, I enjoy watching your videos, and please keep it up and make tips or guidance videos for the new players. Thank you, Brian. I eventually want to make a new money guide on this game. Thanks, man. I know that hacker got like a 50,000 level wanted. What do you mean, Alice? I'm confused. Thank you for the super chat. And thank you. What Rockstar is doing to YouTubers simply talk about the league is outlawed, dissent at its finest. The whole part about all of this is YouTube doesn't care. Yeah. Oh no. Post up. But it's and I don't want to discuss the leaks because I'm scared of getting a strike. But it's like I said, it's freedom of speech. It's like if you're not posting pictures and you're not posting videos, they should not be striking you. They really can't. Oh, I only own one rental property, but I want to buy a second rental property possibly in the winter time. Basically, what the one guy said earlier in the chat, when he said about tenants, is tenants can be great or they can be a nightmare. It really depends on who you get. The tenants that I have are great people. They don't cause problems. You know, I've been doing business with them since May, and so there's really no issues. But I'll tell you something. I grew up in a rental property and the rental property that I grew up in when I was a kid, it was a small apartment building that my parents owned. And so it was like an apartment building with like, how many units it had? 1, 2, 4 units. So it had 4 units, 2 on the second floor, 1 on the ground floor, and 1 in the basement, lower area. And it's a building that my grandmother bought when she came to this country. Like, she worked really hard, and eventually, you know, she got that building, she got payments, and, you know, had that building for some time. But about that building is that this building had like we had 2 tenants. So we had 2 tenants that lived upstairs. I lived on the ground floor of my parents. So we lived in one of the apartments. I lived on the ground floor with my mom and my dad. And then we also had another unit below us. Now, the thing that happened is that the unit below us, we had to get rid of that unit. And what happened was I got an extra room in the unit. So what ended up happening was my parents, the person that lived in the downstairs unit, eventually they moved out. And then what happened was my parents actually got a fine, and they got a ticket for a really stupid thing. Basically, in New York City, because this New York City is where my parents own this building, it's where I grew up. There's like a really stupid law. I don't know if the law is still a thing, but it was like a really stupid law that you could not have a bathtub in the basement. I don't know what the reasoning for that was. It was like a really dumb law. And so what happened was a city inspector came by one day. And we don't know how the city inspector came by. My parents think that it was one of the neighbors that called the city inspector, because my parents did not have good relations with the neighbors. But basically, city inspector came by, and the city inspector, you know, went down in the basement, saw the bathtub, and said, "Hey, this can't be here," and just gave us a big fine. And we had to actually rip the bathtub out and throw it out. And it was stupid. I don't know what the reasoning for that was. It was a brand new good unit that was in the basement, like a whole apartment unit. And I don't know why that law was there, but that just happened. And so we lost that unit in the basement. And so I ended up getting like a second room downstairs, and I lived in that second room in the basement also. So I had a room that was upstairs in the ground floor, and I had a second room that was actually downstairs. And the second room downstairs was kind of like, I just had like a PlayStation down there, and I had a computer. And then like my ground floor room, I just had basically a bed and a table. That's what it was like. But the tenants that were upstairs now, and this is what it's important about, like this is what's important about tenants, what the guy said earlier, is tenants can be great or they can be a living nightmare. And I'll tell you guys something. Do not judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a book by its cover, because people are very judgmental a lot of times. And so I'll give you a perfect example of this. Is one of the tenants that we had was this big guy. Like, I'm trying to think of like a character in like a game that I could think of. Like, it's just, I'm trying to think of somebody that I can think of to like think of this guy, compare this guy. But the guy, okay, the guy that we had in the upstairs was a big biker guy. Like, he was big, like, and he had tattoos all over himself. And like, if you saw this guy, you would think that this guy's trouble. Like, you would think that this guy's like, possibly like a gang member or something like that. Like, he's in a biker gang. So it's ironic I'm playing as a biker character, but yes, so the guy that lived upstairs was like this big biker guy. And when you see him, like, you'd think that this guy's like part of a gang or something like that, but no, he was not part of a gang, he was not a criminal. He had a bunch of tattoos, but it was nothing gang related. And this guy was like the most nicest guy ever. So this guy was like a giant, but he was harmless. He was like really nice. He was very sweet. He never caused any problems. And he was, the only annoying thing that he ever did was his motorcycle. Sometimes his motorcycles were really loud around the block, but that was the only annoying thing. Like, he never caused any problems, always paid his rent on time, never did anything bad in the apartment, none of that stuff. And so, like, a lot of people would look at that guy and they would not want to bring him in the apartment because they would think, oh, you know, this guy's trouble. But, you know, like I said, looks are not everything. You know, he's a big biker guy, but he was cool. He was nice, and, you know, he had no issues. He was actually a manager at Target. So that's what he was actually was it Target or Kmart? He was a manager at like a really big retail store. So that was it. So that was what he was. I was kind of surprised he was like a retail manager, but that's what he did for a living. And he like rented the upstairs. And so this guy paid his rent on time, and he never caused problems. And the point that I'm making here is that people are judgmental, and they look at other people and they would think that they wouldn't rent out that guy. But that guy's like a star tenant. Like, that guy's like a perfect tenant. He's somebody that you want renting out. He was clean. He never broke anything. Now, the other guy, what happened was my dad had actually rented out this the other unit to this other guy, and this other guy was like in his mid-20s, Polish guy. And so what happened was my parents had a good impression of him, and they thought he was a nice guy. He seemed like a nice guy to me at first. No criminal record, none of that stuff. But this guy was the worst tenant that we've ever had. Complete nightmare tenant. So meeting him, talking to him, no criminal background, seemed perfectly, no red flags at the start. What did this guy do that was so bad? Why was he a nightmare tenant? Even though he wasn't a criminal, he was the worst drunk that I have ever seen in my life. Ever. I have never seen a worse drunk than this guy. This guy would get drunk every single night, like almost every night, and what would happen is he would scream. He screamed at the top of his lungs, and he didn't even live with anyone. He lived by himself, and he would just get drunk, and he would just randomly scream all night long. And it scared me as a kid, because his unit was like right above me, and I would sometimes hear him like screaming when I was in my room. And so it was just, you know, terrible. But it gets worse, because not only did he constantly scream while drunk, he would also trash the apartment. So he was just a big mess. He would punch holes in the walls. This guy would flip tables over. This guy was like, you know, insane, like somebody thinking a movie or something like that. And he seemed completely normal when he was being interviewed, but it was just a nightmare. And what happened was he got so drunk so badly that he almost drank himself to death. And what happened was my dad actually had to call an ambulance for him. And the ambulance took him away, and then eventually he came back. And then what happened was, in the future, again, he almost drank himself to death, and my dad had to call an ambulance for him a second time. And then after that, my dad basically told him, that's it, you're gone, get out of here. And so the guy he actually agreed to move out. He didn't put up an argument or anything, he just agreed to move out. And that was just it. But that story is just perfect. Is don't judge a book by its cover, because the guy that seemed like he was normal, no red flags or anything like that, was the big troublemaker. But then the guy that's like a big biker was actually the sweet guy that didn't cause any problems. So that's like you know you don't judge a book by its cover. That's like the best the moral of the story basically there. And then like we had this other couple, like this guy and this girl that lived together, and they actually refused to pay rent. So they did. And they didn't even give any kind of specific reason on why they didn't want to pay rent. They just refused to pay rent. And so what happened was this went on for months and months. And when the New York City court was finally going to hear the case, because my parents couldn't evict them, even though they weren't paying for months, because New York City's laws, it was just a massive bureaucracy. And so this went on for months and months and months. And then finally, the day before their court date, they actually moved out. And we never found them. And it's unknown. We don't know where they went. And so they basically scammed my family, they scammed my parents, and lived rent-free in that apartment for several months. And New York City did absolutely nothing about it. And so that was just, we knew these people were not paying rent. The city did not do anything about it. They kept delaying the court date, and that they basically lived there for free. And what I think they did is I think that couple probably went to another apartment and probably scammed another place and stayed there for a few months also. So that's what, that's that. But you know, that's not to dissuade you from like rental properties. Rental properties are a great form of passive income, and it's a great way to like pay off a house if you have like a mortgage on it. You can just rent the house out. As long as you have somewhere else to sleep, you can just rent the house out to somebody else, and the house will eventually pay itself off over time. But it's it's like I said, like the one guy in the comments brought up, is you need to be careful who you rent to. don't judge a book by its cover also, but, you know, be prepared to deal with nightmare tenants, because it might happen or it might not. You might get lucky, and, yeah. You'll get your rent when you fix this damn door. Yeah, I remember the Spider-Man 3. Yeah, I remember that. The thing is that Mr. Ditkovich's, like, apartment building, like, that, like, Peter actually lives in Spider-Man, actually kind of reminds me of the building that I grew up in. It was kind of similar to that, but it was not as run down. Like, it was much better quality, but it was kind of similar to that. Like, there was nothing ever wrong with the units or the doors. The doors were fine, but it was kind of similar to that building that I grew up in. But my parents eventually, they actually sold the apartment building, and so my parents used the money to, like, my parents used the money to buy, you know, a house on Long Island, which is outside the city, and they, and part of the money they kept for retirement. But my mom did not want to deal with, even though they were making money from the rent and the houses, my mom and dad just didn't want to deal with it anymore because they had so many nightmare tenants. But, oh, I still have one more drop left. Damn, I messed up. I'm losing my track of thought. But yeah, that was just that. But I'm not, you know, my parents don't, you know, my parents think that rentals are a bad idea because they just had some bad experiences. But I generally think they're a good idea. I just think that if you find a good tenant, you're pretty much set for a long time. I think I missed a few comments here. Problem is the housing prices are super inflated. Oh yeah, I agree with you. But I would say is personally don't buy a house in like a state like New York or California. You know, don't buy a house in those places because housing in those places is insane. Like the price that you'll pay for like a house in like price that you'll pay for a house in like California and like New York is just ridiculous. So it's just like you know, people can't afford houses, you know, a lot of times there. Like it's like you're gonna be in debt for a long time if you get a mortgage in a house in New York or California. And if you buy a house in New York City, oh man, you're gonna be in debt for a very long time. If you buy a house like upstate, you know, that it's not gonna be as bad. But if you buy a house in New York City, man, you're gonna be in debt for a long time. Ow, here. There here and drop this package off. Okay. Yeah, property manage. You know, when depending on the property taxes that you have to pay, and like, you know, other expenses, and then you have to pay the property management, I'd prefer just to run the house on my own without a property management company. But it's like I said, like, you know, don't be, you know, if you're renting out a house to people, don't be judgmental, you know, don't be bigoted. It's, you know, give everyone a fair chance and don't judge a book by its cover because, you know, that story, that was like, you know, dealing with that as a kid, that was like a very important life lesson for me. I was like, you know, 12 or 11 years old when like you know, that happened. But like, you know, I was pretty scared of the biker guy, like when I was like, you know, a kid. But then I realized he was harmless. You know, he's completely harmless. He's not gonna hurt anyone. That guy was big. He was really muscular, a lot of tattoos, but I could not picture him hurting anybody. I couldn't. I couldn't. He was just, he was so nice, so friendly to people. And it's probably the reason why he worked in retail also, because he talks to people all the time, so he's friendly to customers. But it's, yeah. The guy that seemed like he wasn't gonna cause problems ended up causing problems. So, you know, keep that important, like a life lesson. Thank you, Nick, for the super chat.
We on?
Yeah, it was my I don't know who called the city inspector to like my I don't know who ended up calling the city inspector to my house. We think it was the neighbor. My friend basically what happened to him is he had a neighbor that my friend, he lived a few blocks away from me when I grew up in New York City, and he had a neighbor that they had a lot of problems with, and he ended up calling the city inspector. They also think his neighbor was racist towards his family, but basically what happened was the neighbor, didn't like my friend's family, and so he called the city inspector, and I'm trying to remember what he complained about. He was complaining about something with their driveway. That's what he complained about, because the New York City inspectors are, like, ridiculous. Like, they will, you know, try to find something wrong every time. Like, the New York City inspectors are like the biggest bureaucrats ever. Like, there's such ridiculous bureaucrats. Like, they're always trying to find something wrong. They're always trying to find something to fine you with. And so I was actually completely amazed that this inspector did not find anything wrong. Like, the inspector went to their house. He was complaining about something with the driveway. Like, the neighbor complained there was something with the driveway. I gotta ask my friend again what it was over again. But he was complaining about something with the driveway, the neighbor, to the city inspector, which it wasn't affecting his property at all. It had, like, nothing in, but this neighbor was, like, a massive Karen, and so he decided to call the city inspector up, and the city inspector, they came by, like, several times, and they had to do several inspections, and it turns out there's absolutely nothing wrong with the property. Nothing wrong whatsoever. And his family was trying to see if there was some way that they could, like, if they could sue the neighbor for the constant harassment, but I don't think they were successful in that in the end. But that was just dealing with stuff like that. Oh no, now that I think about it, yeah, the biker guy that, like, lived in, like, my parents' apartment building, he kind of reminds me of Big Mitch Baker, in a way, kind of, from Vice City, but he's not a criminal, obviously, he's a nice guy. But just the way Big Mitch Baker looked, he's kind of similar looking to Big Mitch Baker. So yeah, he was kind of like that. He had kind of, like, longer hair, you know, tattoos, he wore a biker vest, so that was common. So yeah, kind of like Big Mitch Baker. He doesn't really remind me of any of the Lost members, but he does kind of remind me of Baker. You know, he wasn't a criminal, but his appearance. Maybe one day I'll do like a story time video where I'll talk about, like, the horror story with that crazy drunk guy at, like, my parents', like, building when I was growing up. But that was that. No, he was way bigger than Deacon from Days Gone. Like, the guy, his name was Frank. That was his name, and he was much bigger than Deacon. He was kind of, like, more of, like, as big as Boozer, kind of. But, you know, he worked out, so it was, I cannot do that with a plane. Your second tenant must have had mental health problems, possibly. There was no signs of it when you first talked to him, but I'm actually surprised he agreed to move out, that he just didn't put up an argument, because I don't know if my parents technically had the legal authority to throw him out, even though he caused a lot of problems, but that was always surprised me he did agree to move out. Hi, I love your videos. You're the reason I am rich, because I learned everything from you. Is it worth buying the Pyro? Is the fastest jet? I would say, yeah, the Pyro's worth it, but I would personally think, thank you, Tragic Andrew, I would think that the, I would think that the Molotov is more worth it, even though it's more expensive, because the Molotov is a smaller plane and it's easier to land than the I saw a tenant destroy a house for no reason. Everything destroyed. What? How did that happen? Exactly the same in the UK. People can stay in places rent-free for months and months, no consequences. Ugh. Yeah. You know, I never understood that. Why is it so hard to, like, evict some people? If somebody's not paying for months and months and months, like it's like they've been there for many months and they haven't paid. Why is it so difficult to, like, to throw those people out? Because the landlord is also losing money. So that's just it. You know, they're living on their property. That's their property for free. They're not paying for it, but I'd buy an estate that people are moving to, like Texas or Florida. I don't think New York, Illinois, or California are good. Lots of people are moving out of those states for financial and political reasons. Well, thank you, Nick, for the super chat. But yeah, it's like I said, I would never buy a house in New York. I would never buy a house in California because of just how expensive the properties are, and I would not and the property taxes are ridiculous, especially in New York. Property taxes are just disgusting. But, like, you know, I could buy like 2 houses for like the price like in the Midwest for like the price I could buy a house in California for. So that's like I just don't like the housing market there personally. I don't know what's causing it, but it's like probably the taxes, the cost of living there, probably the politics is an effect as well. But it's like I would not want to buy like a house like in California or New York. It's just too much. Opinion on buying a house in Hawaii. Hawaii is a very interesting place to own a house. And the reason Hawaii is such an interesting place to own a house, Hawaii is kind of strange. And the reason it's strange is because properties in Hawaii are generally very expensive, and the reason for that is because there's very little land. Like it's a bunch of small islands. And so it's property is expensive. However, though, even though property in Hawaii is expensive, property taxes are some of the lowest. I think Hawaii has the lowest property tax rate in the entire country. Correct me if I'm wrong, but even if Hawaii doesn't, Hawaii definitely is like the 5 lowest property taxes in the country. So Hawaii is weird because Hawaii has expensive cost of living. Hawaii is expensive. Like it's not a cheap state to live in. Like groceries, taxes, gas is expensive. Houses are expensive, but property taxes are very low. There is a state income tax there also. However, though, what I'll say about Hawaii is Hawaii might be like a good place to own a property for like a vacation home or something like that, like a small vacation like place if you can afford it. If you have like a place like that, like it'd be like a nice, when you think about it, because property taxes are so low, so like you don't really have to like worry about it being that expensive. And since you're not living in the state, you're living generally somewhere else and you use it as a vacation home, you don't have to pay state income tax as long as you're not doing business in Hawaii. If you're doing business, then you gotta pay state income tax there. But that's that. The property tax in Illinois is the worst I've ever seen. I don't know. Maybe the property tax in New York is a bit worse. I'm trying to think. The property tax in my the property tax on my parents' house is, I think, like $18,000 a year. Is the property tax on my parents' house? They have to pay that. Every year in New York. And judging by that property tax, you would think that my parents are living in some like insane mansion or something like that, but no, my parents are living in like a middle class house. It is a 4-bedroom house. It has like a basement and like an upper floor, and it's like $18,000 around there. Yours is $22,000 a year. That's ridiculous. That's okay. So yeah, so somebody does pay worse property taxes than my parents do, but that's ridiculous. That's yeah. And the thing about this is, no, my parents are not rich. My parents are working class people, James. But it's the reason my parents were able to afford that house in the first place is because they sold the apartment building, like I said, in New York City. But it was that my parents are not rich people at all. I pay $2,000 in upstate New York, 3-bedroom house. Wow, yeah, that's a massive difference than what my parents pay. I'm not wealthy. I'm working middle class in Chicago and I'm paying $22,000. It's horrible, bro. Yeah, and I completely understand. I missed your super chat. I'm really sorry, Wolf. Let me see. Thoughts on drought in the Southwest and Colorado River. The thing is, though, is that the drought can be like really bad, because like in the parts in the Midwest where I live, Wolf, and thank you for that super chat earlier, Nick. But the part of the Midwest where I live, there was a really bad drought last year. It was July last year. There was a drought. And so what happened was, in June, it was raining a bunch. But then in July, it didn't rain for like almost a month at all. And it got really hot. Crops were like drying up. They needed water. It was really bad. It was like cattle did not have like enough grass to eat. It was a crisis in the state. And what happened was, when I was trying to, I went on YouTube and I tried to look up like the drought here that was going on. And what I noticed is that the drought was being covered by local news. So where I lived, it was like local news, like Midwestern news that was covering it. But none of the mainstream medias were covering the drought in the Midwest, like none of them. Like it kind of pissed me off, because it was like a statewide crisis, and that none of the mainstream media were covering it. It was like a disaster in the state. Eventually, it got under control and rain started coming in, but it kind of did piss me off. Drought. This was like last year. Drought. Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. But it's when things are really dry and there's no rain, basically. So. May I ask how your parents got an apartment building? My grandmother came to this country in the late 70s. And so when she came to this country, she was she saved up a bunch of money. I don't know the specifics of it. She eventually, I think, got a mortgage and paid it off over time. And so by the time that my parents had inherited the place was pretty much paid off. So my grandmother just drought. Oh, drought. Yeah, drought, not drought. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, guys. But I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong. But my point is that the media was not covering it. Like it was like really bad, and the media was just not covering it. Only the local media was covering it, like the mainstream wasn't, and that kind of did irritate me. It was on my father's side. Ace Combat 7 playthrough? Yes, I could do that one day. But do you know what I'll tell you? What I'll tell you is that, and this is me growing up in New York City. So I grew up in New York City, and I ended up moving, like, when I finally lived on my own, which I do now, I ended up moving to a pretty rural area. Like a very rural area. It is very different than like New York City. Very, very different. Like where I live, it's like small towns, and there's like I live in a pretty decently sized town. I guess you could call it a city, but it's like pretty much outside, because I like live right at the edge of the town. Like right outside it, there is nothing for like many miles. for many miles, it's just fields and fields and fields. Like there really is not like in New York, like there was always some kind of town or some kind of neighborhood, like something every few miles. But like here, like there will be many miles that you'll go, and there won't be like and there won't be anything for some time. And I feel like there's a big disconnect between like the city and the countryside. And I think there's things people in the countryside don't understand about the city, but then I also think there's a lot of things that people in the city don't understand about the countryside. And basically like a lot of people in I don't know how to describe this basically, but like a lot of people that I knew like in New York are very judgmental about the Midwest and like the countryside. And basically when I tell people that I moved, and they automatically think that I moved to Florida. They're like, "Oh, you moved to Florida?" I'm like, "No, I moved to the Midwest." And they're like, "Why would you go out there?" Like it's generally like that response. And like it's because like a lot of New Yorkers, and I'm not trying to stereotype New Yorkers, I'm a New Yorker myself, I'm from New York originally, but like a lot of New Yorkers, they think that like the Midwest is like some wasteland where like everybody lives in trailer parks and gets drunk all day. Like that's literally what a lot of people think, and that's like complete nonsense. That's like it's nothing like that. You should move to Florida. I didn't want to move to Florida because I cannot take the heat. It's too hot. I don't like the heat. I like the cold. Thoughts on mental health not being taken seriously? Oh well, yeah. I think that mental health should be taken way more seriously, and the problem is that a lot of people don't see mental health issues developing early on. Like one mental health issue that like a lot of people suffer from is a lot of people have really bad anxiety. I guess technically would that be fall under mental health? I guess yes, because it's like if you're suffering from like a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress, it is affecting your mental health. And like so a lot of people don't take stress and anxiety seriously when other people have it, and they tell people things like man up, or they tell people stop being so stressed out and stuff like that. But it is like it is a massive problem, and I've been really stressed out at times too, so it's like I can completely understand that. And there's other mental health issues that like a lot of people don't take seriously. But what I was basically talking about with the city, and thank you Taro, is that it's like people in like a lot of people in New York were like very like judgmental of people in the countryside, and they thought that people in the countryside are like uneducated, and they thought that they like they almost thought like they were above them, like they were smarter than them or something like that because they were from the city. And this is not a mutually exclusive New York thing. This is something that happens internationally. Like internationally, like any country that you go to, typically a lot of people in the big cities, this is very common worldwide, a lot of people in the big cities think that they're smarter than people that are in the countryside. They think that people in the countryside are like uneducated, or they think that they're stupid or something like that. I'm not saying everybody from the city, don't get me wrong, I'm from the city myself, but I'm saying it's a problem. It's a massive problem where people from the city are very judgmental on people from the countryside. And I know it happens both ways too. I know people from the countryside can also be judgmental on people from the city, and people think people from the city are going to cause problems or something like that. What I've seen, like I've seen the way New Yorkers like think about people from like rural areas, and it's just a bunch of nonsense. It's stupid. Like people in rural areas, like some people have much bigger houses than people in New York do. So it's just this idea that everybody lives in trailer parks, or it's just nonsense. It's not true. What I'll tell you is, and this is from what I've seen personally when talking to people, the biggest lie that I've seen people from the city say about people from the countryside is they say that they say our taxes support people in the countryside. I've seen people in the city, like New York City, say that like we pay for rural states or something like that. Like I've seen that, and while that is true to an extent, your federal tax dollars do benefit like rural areas. What the people in the cities do not understand is that the cities cannot function without the rural communities either. You can make the argument that the rural communities can't function without cities, but also cities cannot function without rural communities. So when I hear people from the city say constantly that our tax dollars support the countryside and the countryside would not be able to survive without us, that's not true, because the city would not be able to sustain itself without the countryside either. Now, what does the countryside do to help the city so much? Who produces the gasoline for the cities? The countryside. The countryside is where they make the gasoline for the cities. The gasoline is not produced in the cities. Who makes the food for the cities, the countryside? All the farms are out in the countryside. Who delivers things to the city? Truckers from the countryside. So a lot of people in the city, when they say that the countryside depends on the cities, they don't understand exactly how much the cities depend on the countryside also. Like the Midwest produces a huge amount of America's like produce. Like the Midwest, a lot of the farms, and I personally think it's like it's really disrespectful when I hear like people say that like when I hear people say that it's like a flyover state. They say, oh, you know, flyover states, and that basically implies that it's not a state to visit. It's not worth visiting. That it's like a that's like a boring place to go to. It's kind of disrespectful. It's very rude, and it's the people who say flyover states, they're stupid because they don't even realize the first plane in the world was actually made in Ohio, in a flyover state. So literally, if it was not for the Midwest flyover states, you would not have planes in the first place. And then they call it, how ironic is that the place that actually invented airplanes, they actually call it flyover areas. But that's it. A lot of these people would not know that. You know, they're just set in their ways. They're very ignorant, and so they wouldn't know facts like that. But like I said, there's a massive disconnect between people that live in the cities and the rural communities, and it's just internationally. Like, it's the same thing in my parents' country in Poland. Like, my parents' country, that's where they're from in Poland. Like, people in Warsaw would think that they're smarter than people that, like, live in villages in Poland. So it's something that just isn't just exclusive to New York and, like, it's exclusive pretty much worldwide, you know. Most people in the cities are nice people. You know, they're good people, but the point that I was making is there's a lot of people that live in the cities that are like very ignorant, and they think that people in the countryside are like stupid or something. And I know people in the countryside also think that. There's some people in the countryside that think people from the city are annoying, and they think that people in the city are going to cause problems when they come to the countryside, but that's not true either. This here. But the Wright brothers first flew in Kitty Hawk. Well, I don't know where they first flew, but the Wright brothers were from Ohio, so that's what I do know about it. Get on over to the place. Thinking about moving to New York City for like 6 months after high school in May. I currently live in Baltimore and want a new scenery. Any tips? Well, Leia, if I'm reading your name correctly, what I will tell you is that if you're gonna move to New York City for 6 months, I'm assuming that you're gonna live with like a family member or friend, because you're only gonna be there for 6 months. If you're gonna live with like a family member or a friend, that it's not that big, that's not that big of a deal. But if you're gonna be coming into New York City, trying to rent something, you are not, chances are, you probably won't be able to afford it. Most people can't. And most people that rent in New York City have roommates. Most people. If you live in Manhattan, you are almost always gonna have roommates. Almost always. Very few people can actually afford like renting out in like downtown Manhattan and not having to have roommates. If you live in the boroughs, like Queens would probably be the cheapest borough to rent in, but it still can be expensive. But it's like I said, like be prepared for like, you know, a lot of expenses, because New York City is like one of the most expensive places in America. You'll be surprised how much stuff you have to spend money on. I saw a video that someone's mother evicted their son on their 18th birthday. Are you talking about Optimus? I think he's the one who made the video talking about that. But, yeah, what I'll say is that, yeah, that mother is stupid. You know, I don't know why you would evict your child when they're 18. Technically, yes, they are a legal adult at that point, but, you know, even though they're a legal adult at 18 on paper, very few people that are 18 can actually support themselves fully. So that's, you know, a terrible mother that did that stuff. Does New York City really smell bad? No, I mean, it depends on where you go. Like, if you go to, like, a place like I went to when I went to Flushing Meadows Park, there's no smell there. You know, it's fine. But if you go to some downtown areas in Manhattan, yeah, you're probably gonna have a smell. Some subway stations smell really badly. Also, I think that personally, as a former New Yorker, I will tell you do you know what the biggest joke is in New York City that people make fun of all the time? That our subway system is like a massive disaster. I'm not trying to hate on where I'm from, but I'm saying that subway system is just so messy, graffiti, very old cars. Some stations are better than others, don't get me wrong, but the New York City government actually spent like millions of dollars buying like electric sinks in like the bathrooms in a Grand Central Station. So that was like, who cares? I don't care if I use an electric sink or if I care if like I use a manual faucet. I don't care. You know, I would much rather that money be spent on like actually upgrading the stations, actually making decently looking stations, decently looking subway cars, you know, stuff like that. And you know what I'm always fascinated by is I'm fascinated by when I look at like the trains in like other countries. I look at like, you know, I look at the train systems in like Europe and even in Asia, and like my favorite train system that I think I've ever seen is in Japan. Like, I was just so fascinated by the trains in Japan and like how clean they were and how organized they were. Everything was on time. They were so clean. It was actually a comfortable, nice experience riding in the trains in Japan. Where in New York, it's just you're gonna see graffiti in a lot of places. Some subway stations that you go down to, there will actually be rats in there. Sometimes there's flooding. Like if there's a bad rainstorm, the subway stations will flood. A lot of times they don't arrive on time. You know, some of the subway cars look really bad, and you can also get harassed by people on the subway. Like homeless people are sometimes on the subway that are like, you know, you can get harassed. So it's just you know, I did not see any of that when I looked at the trains in like Japan. Also, I looked at the trains in South Korea. They were like they were just much nicer than they were in New York City. Let me see here. I think I missed a few super chats. Does New York mostly got rats? I think that's a stereotype gone too far. While there are rats in like a lot of places, like some of the subway stations you'll see rats, but like rats aren't everywhere in New York. There's plenty of places that are clean. Why don't y'all drive in New York? The reason that people don't drive in New York is because you can't get anywhere because the traffic is so ridiculous. Like I hate driving in New York City. I hate it so much. Like it's just the traffic just is ridiculous, but also so many people jaywalk in New York City. Like so many, and jaywalking is basically when they cross the street and not at an intersection, not at a proper point of crossing. They'll cross the street like halfway through, and so many people jaywalk. There's so many people on the streets, and you have to be careful. Like when I was in New York City, I was always driving as slow as I possibly could, but like not to the point where people are honking on me, but like I constantly looking around everywhere, just making sure nobody's jaywalking in front of me, and then you gotta. It's just a nightmare. And the worst part about driving in New York isn't even the traffic. It's not even about like possibly somebody jaywalking in front of your car. The worst part about driving in New York is the parking. The parking is the worst part. That's the worst. What just happened to his car? Okay, that's the worst part about it is the parking. Trying to park in New York City is a nightmare, and you're probably gonna have to pay for parking somewhere. Probably gonna have to pay for it. You're probably gonna have to go to one of those underground parking spots and have to pay for it too. Hey Pro, how are you? Sorry I'm late again. I'm looking forward to watching the documentary. Also, do you think we will get an official look at GTA 6 soon? Thank you, Specialist, for the super chat. I think that they will reveal GTA 6. We mean it. The leak happened, but I think they'll do a trailer on it soon. You know, maybe next few weeks. You know, something. They're probably compiling something together right now to reassure players. London Underground is the oldest subway system, and it puts New York the same. They don't run it 24/7 so they can maintain it. Well, thank you, Mark. I'm gonna look up some YouTube videos later today what the London Underground system is like, because I never looked at that. But it's like yeah, the New York City's like system is like, yeah. Are gang fights common in New York streets? No, not really. That's just a stereotype. There are gangs in New York, but you're not really gonna see people fighting each other on the streets. It's just I'll tell you guys, no, I've never been to Japan or South Korea. I'll tell you guys this though, there was a dumb situation that happened where, basically, my mom had a situation, like, a few months ago. A few months ago, my mom had a situation. And so, my mom, her English isn't the best. She speaks Polish as her first language. And so my mom had to, when she works in Manhattan, and so she had to park. A lot of times she has to pay for parking. And so she uses this underground parking spot. And what happened was, literally, the underground parking spot that she used, she tried to get to her car one night. So my mom works late, so she starts in the afternoon, and then she gets off work, like, late at night. Like, when she gets off work, it's like around midnight, 1 a.m. And then she doesn't get home until around 3 a.m. sometimes. But anyways, my mom was trying to get to her car, and when she got into her car, she tried to start it, it would not start. I think it was the battery that was dead. I don't remember what was wrong with the car, but they ended up fixing it later on. But what happened was the car would not move, and so her car was stuck there. Now, this was really late at night. My mom called me because I'm usually awake at that hour anyways, and she was panicking over the situation. And so basically what happened was I had to contact Geico, and I had to get them to do a towing service. Now, the thing about this is I did the towing service, and I specified that it was a parking garage. And what happened was the tow truck guy, when he came by, he said, "Oh, my tow truck isn't gonna fit in there," and he just left my mom there. And then he gave me an attitude on the phone, and he said that it's a parking garage. I specified that for you. He was just giving me an attitude. The guy was just being, an a-hole to me over it. And so my mom was then pretty much stuck there at that hour. And what ended up happening was then the story gets worse because the person from the parking garage, like one of the people that came over to my mom and said to her, "You have to move this car by 5 a.m. or we're gonna give you a massive ticket or a fine," something like that. And basically, my mom's been at that parking garage for years, and I told her to give me the phone, to give the phone to the people, and I actually yelled at them on the phone. Now, I very rarely yell. I don't yell at people a lot. But I yelled at this person because this person got on my nerves because they were being unreasonable. And I literally had told him, "Did you not just see the tow truck that literally left my mom there? She's stranded there right now. She cannot move the car. How do you expect her to move the car if the battery is dead?" And he just kept telling me that the car cannot be here past like 5 a.m. And I said to him, I'm like, "Listen, buddy, my mom has been a customer there for years, for many, many, many years. And you're telling her that you cannot do this one favor for her one time?" And then he basically said, "I'll see what I can do." And that was it. And then what ended up happening was my mom got another tow truck driver. He came at 7 a.m. and the guy actually did not give us a fine or a ticket, and he let it go. But he was just being really pushy, and it irritated me because my mom had used that parking garage for years, and then the fact that he saw that my mom was having problems, he was being completely unreasonable about it, and just like trying to throw trying to get my mom in trouble for something that was completely not her fault. But that was just it. My mom had nothing to jumpstart the car with, but that was just it. But a situation like that can happen where you are you're because in New York City you're always paying for parking, and then you could have a situation where your car doesn't start, and then you're gonna get in you cannot move the car eventually. So you're gonna pay for the parking, but you can't move the car, and then somebody's gonna get pissed off at you because at certain hours you can't park on the streets in certain hours in certain places, and so you got a situation like that. But literally, and it was literally what happened was I had I only ever lost my temper one time when dealing with somebody like on the streets in New York. There's only one time that I actually really yelled at somebody in public on the streets because this guy had really gotten on my nerves. This was even a few years before this. So a few years before this, what happened was my mom had had her car die on her. So the engine just stopped working, and she had problems with her car. No, this was a battery issue. This one was a battery issue. And what happened was my mom had stopped the car, like kind of like to the right side of the street. It was like a one-way street. And so she turned on the blinkers. Is it blinkers or not the blinkers? What's the yellow lights? Hazard lights. I think they're called the yellow lights when you activate those to let people know that something's wrong with your car. And so my mom activated that, and my mom, this is like around 1 o'clock in the morning. So my mom calls me. I drove over there. This is, a few years ago. Drove over there at like 1 o'clock in the morning. I was not asleep, but drove over to New York City because we lived in the suburbs. We lived in Long Island at the time. Well, that's my parents still live, but I don't live there anymore. And so drove over there at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and trying to see what's wrong with the car. My dad ended up helping. He got like jumper cables together, and he got the car working. And what ended up happening is we were taking up a little bit of room on the street because it was like a one-way street, and the streets in New York City are like really tight. And so what happened was I would like wave people down because it was like kind of like halfway down the street. I would wave people down. Do not come down here. Don't come down here. And what happened was, guess what? The drivers in New York City, they don't listen to you. And so they decided to come down the street, and they started honking. Even though I told people don't come down the street, waving no, 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 no. And they would still come down. They would still come down the street. And this one guy, he literally came down the street, and he had like a van, and he put his van like through this tight little space, like because there was barely any space, but he somehow got the van through. I literally thought that he was gonna scratch my mom's car, like the way the guy was driving. Like he was so close, he barely got it through, and the guy did not even move on. After he got through, he stopped his van, he opened up the window, and then he gave me an attitude, and he started yelling at me, said, "You cannot block the street here." Just started giving me an attitude. And I literally you know what I actually said to him at that point? I said, "Do you not see that my mom's goddamn car is having problems right now?" I literally yelled at him. I very rarely curse, but I literally yelled, "Do you not see the lights on the car? The yellow blinking lights?" I literally said that to the guy. I yelled like the top of my lung because I was pissed. I was waving this guy not to come down the street. He came down the street, and then even when he got through, he almost hit my mom's car. Then he actually had the nerve to open the window and yell at me and give me an attitude, tell me I'm blocking the street when I'm trying to help my mom's car that's broken in the middle of the street. Literally, that was it. It was literally that. Like I did not yell at somebody in like a very long time when that happened. I very rarely yell. It takes a lot to make me lose my cool. Like I'm typically a very chill guy. I don't yell at people, but this was like one time that I pretty much lost almost my sanity because it was that, like, trying to tell people don't come down here and they still come down here. Like it's that it was just, oh my god. It's that, but it's like some of the drivers in New York, it's like that. You deal with stuff. This is, by the way, in Queens, so this wasn't in Manhattan. If this was in Manhattan, it'd be much worse. But this is in Queens where this happened. So that was like that's just, yeah, that stuff. That's basically an example of like stupid driver. And if you want to know what happened, he after I actually yelled at him, he gave me like a little bit of looks, and then he just drove off, and that was just it. I didn't see him again. But yeah, stupid drivers, pretty much that. Do you have a heist, by the way? Anyone got a heist ready? I can do a heist if anybody's got a heist ready. Let me see here. I say we're quoted in a Games Radar article today. When I was reading about the leak, I had to come by and show some love. Here's some here's some Capitale. Thank you, John, but you saw we're quoted in a Games Radar article today when I was reading about it. What's we're quoted? What do you mean? Can you explain a little bit? You don't have to give me another super chat, John. I appreciate it, but can you explain what you mean a little bit? I'm just a little confused. Have you ever heard of train surfing where people sit on top of trains? Have you or anyone you know done that before? I heard it's popular in New York. No, and I've actually never seen anybody do that. Thank you, Leia. The Karen Professional. Thank you, Chasseroni, for the super chat. Hey, Professional. In GTA Vice City Stories, in GTA Vice City Stories, when Vic fights against Armando Diaz, which room takes place? Because in your playthrough, the ceiling looks blue. Is it normal? Which room takes... Which room takes... What do you mean which room takes place? It's like the basement floor. Like, you never see that room, only in the mission. That's like the basement of that building, is where it happens. Thank you, VHM 108. What does your mom work on? My mom is a cleaner. Oh, there's a heist. Okay, we got a heist here. My mom is a cleaner in New York City. So she's, I don't know if you would call her a maid. No, she's more of a maintenance cleaner. My mom cleans offices for, like, CEOs. So she actually works in downtown Manhattan, and so she cleans, like, the offices for, like, rich CEOs, like the people that run companies and stuff like that. That's what my mom does. Did you ever have to fight someone? No, I never fought somebody, but I did get attacked once. That did happen. I got attacked once. I was like in 7th grade when I got attacked. Basically what happened was there was this, I told this story before, but, there was this kid that was, being really annoying to me. And he was saying, like, a bunch of, like, racist things against, like, Polish people and just irritating me in, like, the cafeteria. This is, like, 2006 when this happened. So how old was I? I was, like, what, 12 years old when this happened. And so what ended up happening is, this kid, so what I got pissed off, I got irritated by what he was saying to me. And what ended up happening was I called him really short, so I mocked him for his height. And I kind of regret that I did that, but I was just pissed because he was kind of short. I was much taller than him, but I kind of mocked him over his height, and he was just irritating me. And what ended up happening was when we were outside in the schoolyard, he actually came up behind me and hit me in the back and knocked me to the ground. So he actually hit me from the behind and knocked me down. And then what ended up happening was a school aide saw that, and he ended up getting suspended. And so that was like the only time that I've ever, like, actually been attacked and stuff like that. But well, he is involved in this, Mr. Waifu. No, that wasn't Jake. But Jake is involved. For people that don't know who Jake is this psycho kid that I encountered when I was in middle school. Like, Jake is like let me start this up. I'm ready here. But like, if there was like there was this one kid that I went to school with. And I never saw him past 7th grade. But there was this one kid that I went to school with. His name was Jake. And he was like, Jake was like a psychopath, like an actual psychopath. Like, Jake was like somebody I would describe as evil. And you might think that I'm, like, over-exaggerating or something like that, but, like, if you want to know the type of person Jake was the type of person that, like, went up to kindergartners, because my school was middle school and kindergarten. He went up to kindergartners, and he would tell them that there's no such thing as Santa Claus, and he would laugh at people. He would take personal pleasure in making people suffer. He was, like, a bad kid overall. Like, he would constantly cause problems, and he was also a big kid, too. He beat a lot of kids up. Like, he would just attack kids. He would steal money from kids. He actually stole my Game Boy from me when I was in 7th grade. Basically, what happened was I was in a class with him, and my Game Boy ended up getting stolen from my lunch bag, which I had in the closet. And so I had no proof, but I knew that it was Jake, because Jake would sell, like, stolen Game Boys, and so he stole my Game Boy from me, too. But anyways, about Jake, is this kid terrorized the school. Like, he beat up so many kids. Like, it was just, like, people were just scared of him constantly. And then one day, I actually got my revenge on Jake. I got my revenge on him. And what I basically ended up doing is, and the reason I actually did what I did wasn't even because he stole my Game Boy. That was part of it. But the main reason was because I was just so sick of his terror. I was so sick of this piece of crap just harassing people and just terrorizing the school constantly. But what I ended up doing, it was an unexpected thing. It was like a momentary thing. What happened was that same kid that actually attacked me. The ironic thing about this is there was kind of like a part of the schoolyard area, like a corner of the yard. Jake actually came up behind him, the same kid that attacked me, and hit him really badly in the back of the head. Like, he punched him in the back of the head, like, he went down. Like, it was really bad. He was bloody. He ended up being okay, but it was really bad. Jake ended up smashing his glasses, and Jake stole his wallet. That was what the whole. It was complete unprovoked attack. And so what ended up happening is I was like one of the few people that actually saw the attack. Like nobody else saw, but I actually saw it. And so even though the victim in this situation was a guy who actually originally attacked me, the guy who attacked him was way worse. And so what happened was at that point I actually went to the assistant principal's office, and I told her that I saw what happened because nobody knew who hit the guy. Like, he was down, nobody knew who hit him. And I told the assistant principal, I know Jake did this. And she, basically, I had to verify my story. And so she checked my record. She checked that I wasn't a troublemaker. I didn't cause problems or anything like that. And so I told her I filled out a full report on what happened. I signed it and everything like that. And then Jake got suspended for like a really long time over that. He was gone for a very long time. Did I ever see Jake after that? I don't know if I did. But that was the only time I ever told on anybody. I never told on anybody before, ever. In everything, high school, middle school, I never did it. And that was the only time I ever did it. And, you know, I don't even consider that snitching, because snitching is more of when you're part of something. I did what was right. You know, this kid was a threat. He was a menace, and he was constantly, like, you know, beating kids up and harassing them. And, you know, what I did, because he was suspended for months, he was not able to hurt anybody else. So I probably saved a bunch of kids from being beat up by getting him suspended. So he wasn't able to hurt anybody else in that time when he was suspended. But that was just it. And Jake is that type of person that's never going to change. I cannot picture him ever changing. He was like a really bad kid, just a really bad guy overall. And you know, that's that. And what actually ended up happening is that same kid that attacked me actually found out later on that I was actually the one who got Jake suspended, and he actually ended up apologizing to me over the whole thing, how he actually hit me in the past, and I told him that it was fine. But he actually, you know, had the guts to apologize to me for hitting me in the past, and that was just it. But, you know, I just did what I thought was right, and that was it. And I was just so sick of this scumbag, and that was just it. But, yeah, I got Jake suspended, and it was my personal revenge on him, too. You know, he stole my Game Boy as well, but it wasn't even about the Game Boy. It was just, I was just so sick of him. That was just it. I was sick of this kid, and that was just it. And, you know, he deserved it.
Oh, you're here. Why didn't they say something?
I also,
Man, they never tell me nothing, you know?
I don't know if I really had a really scary life experience, Max. Thank you for the super chat. Maybe, like, you know, that's the closest thing to it. But I also talked to the assistant principal, and I told her, like, you know, if I fill out this report, he's not going to find out that I was the one who told you about this, right? And she's like, no, you have my word. And so that was just basically it. And so Jake never found out I did it. Nobody ever found out I was the one who filled out the report on Jake. But that was it. And I think a lot of kids were happy about it, too, because Jake wasn't able to terrorize anybody anymore, too. So that was just it. Like, yeah, I could actually imagine him being somebody that would be on, like, Beyond Scared Straight. That's like the program where, like, kids are sent to, like, prison to see what it's like. But yeah, I could imagine him being like one of those kids. But like I said, he was just like a really, really bad kid. And if he's somebody that I would describe as evil almost, yeah, because there was nothing good about Jake. Nothing good. There was not one redeeming quality about him. Even some of the worst people that I knew in school at least did something good. But him, I don't remember him doing one good thing ever. Ever. Not one nice thing ever. Not one compassionate thing. Nothing. There was nothing good about this kid. Like, this kid is just constantly causing problems. He was what I would describe. I'd think he's a psychopath. Like, when I was younger and a kid, I didn't know what a psychopath was, but I think he was a psychopath. He took personal pleasure making other people suffer. He was always causing problems. He had no conscience, no emotion towards anybody else. Psychopaths do not have emotion towards anybody else. They don't care about others. They have no feelings towards others, really. So it's like, I did think that he was possibly a psychopath looking back on it now. The thing about it is that even though Jake was like a really dangerous kid and he beat people up, he was really stupid though. He was not smart. Like a lot of other psychopaths are smart, but Jake was an idiot. So it was like you know, if he was smarter, he probably could have figured out that I was the one who got him in trouble. But he was you know, he was a moron. So, you know, there's that. One positive experience I had in the past. I mean, it's not a good question, but I want to lighten the mood. Positive experience I've had in the past? I don't know. I can't really think of anything at the top of my head, actually, right now. See if I can get all these boxes here. Oh, Jake was like this crazy kid that I knew in school, like when I was in middle school many, many years ago, like in 2006, and it was just, yeah, I don't even know where he is in this world right now. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in prison, because there was no changing that kid whatsoever. There's nothing, no redeeming factor. If he actually did change his life around, I'd be very surprised. But he's like, he was just a very bad kid.
30 seconds. Don't dawdle.
What is my opinion on the prison system? Well, that's a very, I'm guessing you want to know because I studied law in school. But, it depends. Some states have different, you know, states have different prisons than each other. But, what I will say is, I don't even know if that would even change him, Mark. Thank you for the super chat. But, the prison system, what I'll say is that our prison system is based on punishment, mostly. That's what our prison system is based on. Some other countries, their prison system is based on rehabilitation, and other prison systems, it's like a mix of both. I think a mix of both is generally like what, you know, I don't think that it should be like complete punishment. I think there should be some rehabilitation, but I don't think that rehabilitation prisons completely work either, because like, if you look at a country like Norway, for instance, like Norway has like those prisons that are like, you know, almost like hotels, basically. And that's pretty much almost what they are to me, because those prisons, are nicer than how some people live. But Norway has like prisons where people have like actual beds. They have computers in their cells, a library, a personal shower. They have like sometimes a tennis court. But what I will say about that, any extracurriculars in school, I didn't really take any extracurriculars in school. I always did really good. I always took history electives. That's what I was always strong in. Let me think. What do we do here? Wait, okay. Oh, no.
I don't think you're supposed to be here.
Okay, what the? That guy doesn't even have a helmet. How is he?
Sounds like they're sending news.
Okay, no big deal. It's fine. We all make mistakes. I live in Norway. Well, what I'll say about it is, some of these prisons, like sometimes some prisons, like people become more hardened criminals when it's in prison. That is true to a degree, but my perspective on it is, I generally believe in second chances for people that I think deserve it. Like, there are certain crimes that I don't think people deserve second chances for. Like, I think murder, I don't think anybody should deserve a second chance. If somebody commits a murder, I think they should be in prison for life and should never get out. You know, I don't think that somebody should get a second chance for rape either. I think that's an unforgivable crime as well. But, like, you know, if somebody's involved in, like, robbery, if somebody's involved in, like, robbery, or, like, you know, or they were part of, like, a gang, or they did something, like, you know, bad in their younger lives, I do think that person deserves, like, a second chance at life, because people make dumb mistakes when they're younger, and they fall in with a bad crowd, and so I don't think that, like, one mistake should shape a person's life, as long as it's not a really terrible mistake. Then I don't think that, like, that one mistake should shape a person's life forever. That's the way that I see it.
Start if you're gonna make it out of here under the radar. Alright, look busy and shout LSFD if anyone gets in your way.
This way, guys, go around.
We need to pick up the pace. Security is sweeping the whole building. Stay one step ahead or this whole thing goes south.
Okay. But what I will say about like Norway's prisons is
We've got some heavy chatter on the police frequencies. Sounds like they're sending noose.
Norway's prison systems would not work in America. And what I personally don't like is I don't like when people compare the Norwegian prison system to the American prison system, because I think that that's a really bad comparison to make.
What is your
Oh.
freaking problem?
No. Okay, go, just go.
Give me a hand over here.
What?
Ass, you piece of shit. I'm going to right now. This area is private.
Come on,
Get
come on.
out. You're not allowed here.
Okay. What I was gonna say about Norway's prison system is the reason that Norway has such a low crime rate is not because of its prison system. Like a lot of Norwegians think that. My personal opinion on it, I think that the reason Norway's like crime rate is so low is because the low population. It's the low population. Like Norway, I think has like 4 million people in total. So because of that, they're not going to have a very high crime rate, and also because Norway does not have a lot of urban centers. A lot of they have some cities, but they have a lot of small towns where a lot of their population lives. And the reason that that's important is every country in the world, no matter where you go, like every country where there's urban centers, there's typically going to be more crime, because you're going to have things like gangs and like, you know, other other criminals. These SWAT members take way too many shots, but you're gonna have like criminals and other gangs in urban centers. And another reason for it is that Norway is not a poor country. Norway is like one of the richest countries in the world, and people have a very high standard of living. Wherever you have a very high standard of living, you are going to have a very low crime rate. So whatever country, there is a correlation between that. So if you look where there's a lot of poverty, where people are very poor, crime tends to be higher. Where people make a lot of money, crime tends to be lower. The reason for that is because when people are poor, they're turning to other ways to make money. And so there's a lot of corruption also in those areas. But that's like one of the best ways to reduce crime is to one of the best ways to reduce crime is to help people get out of poverty. When you help people get out of poverty, you're gonna reduce a lot of crime. SWAT members take way too much damage. It's ridiculous. 2 magazines already, he's still alive. One guy back there. But I'll tell you, if like about Norway's prison system is Norway also does not have like a lot of the gangs that America has. And what I mean by that is that like Norway, for instance, does not have like the cartels. Norway does not have the Italian mafia. Norway does not have the Russian mafia. Norway does not have outlaw biker gangs. Norway does not have like MS-13. Norway does not have the triads. So like there's all these gangs and mafias and all these groups that like you can name, and like Norway does not have these groups. But if Norway had a lot of these gangs in there, these gangs and all these mafias, I think their prisons would be filling up. It's that they don't have a lot of these gangs and these cartels and these mafias in their country. So that's partially why I think that their crime rate is so low. I don't think it's because of their prison system. I'm still using snacks the old way. I still haven't gotten used to the new way. Well, you're getting your life back together right now, right, Gothic? We have biker gangs in Norway. Okay, you might have some gangs. I'm not denying that. But my point is that, like, a lot of the gangs that are in America, like, a lot of those groups, like, you probably don't have the Italian mafia or the Russian mafia, and you don't have the cartels. So it's like, my point is that there's other factors to why Norway's crime rate is so low. I do not think that Norway's crime rate is so low is because of its prisons. That's, you know, my personal opinion on it. I have been to Poland in 2010. Are you religious? No. I'm an agnostic. I don't really like to talk religion personally.
Calling 911 is a billionaire. Or should I say, ex-billionaire after his next insurance premium comes through. Economic justice is a beautiful thing.
Phenomenal job for making a 2-hour documentary about why Rockstar fanboys are wrong. And something you know is that rich people being so greedy and manipulative is not good for business. Well, thank you, Isaiah. What's your opinion on communism? It doesn't work? It's a terrible system? Okay, well, we got out of that situation where... My parents also grew up under communism, so it's, my parents, when they grew up in Eastern Europe, they dealt with communism, and that was, you know, my parents tell me oftentimes of the horrors that they dealt with. Opinion on Strauss Zelnick? I don't like him. I think that he was involved in Red Dead Online's cancellation more than he says he was.
Sure, I'm not whatever they told you, but hear me when I say that we are on the verge of pulling off the single greatest
6 Mile
feat
drive.
of organized criminality this city has ever seen. Admittedly,
The biggest problem with crime in urban America in recent years is that they don't really enforce the law. Criminals get out like in GTA. Well, thank you, Nick. And that is, you know why that happens? That happens because of stupid prosecutors, stupid district attorneys.
did someone say tequila? Almost there. Find the
But-
buyer and this is a done deal.
Oh man, I wish you could like not hear like Lester during these heists, because I hear him so much during these heists. Yeah, I'm thinking of making short content one day. I just don't know what I'm trying to think of something that I could make that's a short, but yeah, but also yeah, but also Nick, to add on to your point though, is that like a lot of places want to defund the police, which I think that's you know a really bad idea, and I don't think that a lot of these places realize how much problems that's actually going to cause. That's definitely not going to help the crime rate. Wait, what just happened? Wait, what? Well, what just happened? Okay, we'll retry. Well, no, guys, don't be, you know, don't be pissed at him. Accidents happen. It's, you know, it's fine.
Getaway cars, go! The driver has them in position.
I've had stupid fails as well, so it happens to all of us. Cut through the biker clubhouse. My God, look how many shots I put into him. And he's still alive. You know, forget this. I'm just climbing over the fence. Like, that's ridiculous. that many shots and he's still alive. I cannot believe that. That's ridiculous.
I'll kill you!
What did I just get hit by? Okay, I don't even know. Oh no, don't drive up here.
Okay, the decoys are go. They're splitting up to cover it. Now's your chance.
Oh, I'll tell you though, those people, anybody that wants to privatize the police is stupid. That is just dumb. That is just dumb. Do you want a private corporation being your police force? You don't want that. That's just stupid. The police force are not perfect. I know that. I know that there's, I know there's bad cops out there, and that shouldn't be cops. They should be in jail or fired depending on what they do. I know there's racist bad cops, but most cops are good people. And it's like you always want the cops to be public. You always want the cops to be government. You want them to be funded by your tax dollars. You don't want the police force to be private. You don't want a large corporation, because once a large corporation starts becoming your police, they're gonna start policing for profit, and that's gonna be like that's just gonna be a disaster. Usually the people that like support like privatizing the police tend to be richer people a lot of times, but for people that say that like that the police force should be privatized, what I'll say about that is they typically argue that we've never done it before. We should try it. But the thing is, we have tried privatizing the police force. We've actually done that before in American history, and it's actually been a massive disaster when it happened. You know when the police force were privatized? You know what they were called? They were called Pinkertons. That's exactly what they were. The guys in Red Dead Redemption 2, they were a real group of people. The Pinkertons were basically police for hire. That's what they were. They were a large corporation that had hundreds and hundreds of agents that the federal government and state governments would use them as private police to enforce laws. So they would pay them to enforce the laws. And the Pinkertons were a massive disaster. There was massive corruption, and the way the Pinkertons are portrayed in Red Dead Redemption 2 is pretty accurate to how they actually were. They were very corrupt. They were not good people. Pinkertons were involved in a lot of scandals also. The Pinkertons were very brutal also. Very, very brutal. Defunding or privatizing the police would be idiotic. I agree. Yeah, I agree that defunding the police was stupid. It'll make real-life crime easier than GTA. On a side note, you should play the Driver franchise, specifically Parallel Lines. So thank you for the super chat, Nick. I might play the Driver games one day on my channel.
Listening to their channels, they are pissed. Almost there. Find the buyer, and this is a done deal. I'm not one to be premature. I'm not whatever they told you, but hear me when I say that we are on the verge of pulling off the single greatest.
Any movies you've seen recently rewatched in time? I haven't seen a movie in some time. You know what movie I want to rewatch? I want to rewatch Midway. That was a really good movie. I love that movie.
We are seconds away from the history books, my friends. I wasn't sure I should call it a retirement, but professionally at least, it looks like a good call. Yeah.
Any movies you've seen recently? Thank you, Wolf, and thank you, Third Street. Thoughts on the SAFE Act? You are talking about like the the firearms law that was in New York. Normally I don't tend to comment on stuff like this because it's pretty political. But what I will say about the SAFE Act is the SAFE Act was like they had a really stupid part in it because the people that wrote that law didn't know. They didn't know a lot about handguns because most handguns have more than 10 rounds in the magazine, typically 10 rounds or more. And so what happened is that when that law passed, it made all firearms in New York State with just 7 rounds in the magazine, which basically made pretty much most handguns illegal overnight. And then what happened was when that law actually went to the Supreme Court in New York, they actually struck down part of the law, and the part of the law actually said that you can own a 10-round magazine, but people could only have it up to 7, which that was kind of stupid. That you can own a 10-round magazine, but you can only load it up to 7. And how is somebody going to enforce a law like that? That's just dumb. So that's my view on that. The law abolishes cash bail across Illinois. Oh, well then I guess that has to be a different law, because that's what the SAFE Act was in New York. I thought you were talking about the SAFE Act in New York, but if you're talking about the recent thing in Illinois that got rid of cash bail, I think that's stupid. I don't know. Yeah. I don't. I didn't know what the law was called, but it's. Yeah, I don't think abolishing bail is a good idea. I think that's going to cause a lot more problems. I didn't watch Top Gun Maverick. The Safety Act. Oh, well, I don't know then. I know SAFE Act from New York, but... Yes, I will have another Modern Warfare 2 part up tomorrow, so I'll have that tomorrow. What do you think of Rockstar's response to the situation? I think they're going to delay it anyway, since we don't know what they're when they plan to release the game. I think it's going to be, yeah, I think it's going to be delayed. The thing about a bail system is that bail is meant to encourage the person to come back to court. Well, they have to legally come back to court, but they pay the bail, and that's to encourage them to come back to court. But if you don't have bail, you're either going to have one of two things. Either you're going to release the person and hope they come back for their trial, or you're going to imprison the person until their trial. And so, if you have, I think that a lot of times courts make mistakes, and I think that a lot of times they release a lot of really bad people on the streets. There's some really bad people that should not be on the streets, and they should be in jail waiting their trials. They should not be on the streets, because when they're on the streets, they could hurt even more people. Almost there. Thank you, Isaiah Russell, for the super chat. But, what was it? There was a situation in California, and, it was that, in California, I remember there was a really stupid prosecutor, like a really stupid district attorney, where there was a situation where there was these two guys. Do I think Rockstar deserved the leak? Absolutely not. No, they didn't deserve it. Look, I have problems with Rockstar when it comes to things like abandoning Red Dead Online, but no, they didn't deserve what happened with that leak. You know, there's a lot of developers that, like, worked very hard on the game, and for all their hard work and the source code to be leaked like that, no, they didn't deserve that. And I hope the hacker gets caught. But it's, what I was saying about the California thing is, there was this situation where these two guys got pulled over, and they had, in their car, they had 150,000 fentanyl pills. And so these guys were not small-time drug dealers. These guys were suppliers, which supplier is much, much worse than, like, a drug dealer. And, it's like a step ahead of a drug dealer. And what happened is, that 150,000 fentanyl pills that they had in their car, the district attorney, I don't remember the guy's name, but the district attorney did a risk assessment on those two guys and said that they passed the risk assessment. And he said they're not a danger to the public. And so he released them, and they were told to come back on their trial. and so they weren't held in jail until their trial. And guess what? They didn't show up to trial. They were missing, and they didn't know where they were. I don't know if they caught them ever since, but they didn't come back to trial. And so you had two really dangerous suppliers that literally this stupid district attorney decided to release them. I don't know how how does somebody have like 150,000 fentanyl pills in their car and they pass a risk assessment? That shows that they're selling drugs to hundreds of people. That person's a massive risk, like a huge risk. Who is the idiot who was doing the risk assessment like on that? But like they let these two guys. Those two guys should be in jail awaiting their trial. They should not be on the streets. Those two guys are very dangerous, and it's just stuff like that is exactly like why you have crime rising, because you have dumb people in government like releasing some of these people. Some of these people should be in jail. And so that's that. I'm typically a guy that believes in second chances and I believe in forgiveness, but I also have like a very strict view of the law, and so it's like somebody like that, it's like that person should not have been released. They should have been those two guys should have been in jail awaiting their trial. There's no reason why they should have been released. How does somebody carry that much drugs and they pass a risk assessment? I don't know why. It's stupid people. That's exactly why. Stupid prosecutors, dumb people in government that don't know what they're doing. That's precisely what it is. But it's I played Max Payne 3 before, but I can do the other Max Payne games one day. But I will say that and thank you, Edgy. Yeah, what I'll say is that what's really important what's really important for when you're going to the I gotta stay in the menu here for a moment, and the reason for that because that cutscene has like copyrighted music. But when you're going to vote, I don't care. I don't talk politics as a gaming channel. I don't care. What political viewpoint you may have, but when you're going to vote, make sure you check what the prosecutors that are in your area, because a lot of people skip the district attorney elections. They do. Like, I don't know why people just don't care about the district attorney elections, but the district attorney elections, I consider those very important because that's the person that's going to be determining law in your area. And so it's that person could completely cause your area to crime to completely get out of control if that person doesn't know what they're doing. So that's actually a very important election that people tend to not pay attention to. And so I think when people should really pay attention to prosecution elections, district attorney elections, and look up your district attorney like in your area. It doesn't matter what party they're from. Just look up their policies, look up their views on certain things, look up their views on crime, look up their policies on laws, what laws they want to get through, and stuff like that. And that should be very important, because if you get a really stupid district attorney, they're going to cause a lot of problems. A lot. Look at what happened to San Francisco. What was his name? Bowden or something like that in San Francisco. He had caused so many problems. That guy was a complete idiot. He caused so many problems, he got recalled. So the people in San Francisco did a recall, and they threw him out. And I remember that the prosecutor was such an idiot that he was saying that it was like he kept saying that it was like a conservative like attack on him, but it had nothing to do with politics. It had nothing to do with that. He had people from both the left and the right who both signed the recall, who recalled him because they were tired of him, because the guy was a moron. He didn't know what he was doing. It didn't matter what political party he was from. The guy was just an idiot, and that was just it. But that's what I say is, like, when it comes to elections, pay very close attention to the prosecutors in your area and the district attorneys, because that determines, those people make laws. And I don't know why, but people just don't care about the district attorneys in their area. They ignore that election completely when that election is very important. But have I played the Yakuza games? I've played demos from them, but I never played them in full. I gotta play them one day. Thank you, Andrea. The courts and DAs are financially motivated to it intentionally. Now, well, it's like, it's when you have stupid judges and incompetent prosecutors, that is a recipe for disaster. Because you could have the best police force in the world, you could, but if you have stupid prosecutors and stupid judges, that's going to be a recipe for disaster. It doesn't matter how good your police force is going to be; they're going to cause so many problems. They're going to release people that shouldn't be released, and they're going to cause a lot of problems. That's going to happen. And as for the California police who actually arrested those two drug suppliers were outraged. They're absolutely outraged that those people were those two suppliers were released from jail. That was like I don't know what they were thinking. That was just like a really stupid really stupid thing. Oh, this isn't my arcade. This is my friend's arcade. Per Pro, any tips on finding info on candidates in local elections? Google. Google is probably the best thing. And don't read one website, read multiple websites. Don't, you know, what you read on their, make sure you read their website, like the person running for office, read their website and read what their policies are, but then also read their history of policies. Read about what they supported. And then also read another site, like another site that talks about them. So you want to get as much information as you can on these people. That's what I'll say. Is that, like, I would never vote for a prosecutor like the guy in San Francisco. That guy was an idiot. Revisit some of the old weaponized vehicles? One day. Maybe I could. Opinion on Fortnite, I don't play it. Do I watch Dark Viper AU? He's a friend of mine. I actually talked to him today. I actually messaged him about his, like, strike situation. He got it resolved. Speaking of which, let's see if I got striked. Hopefully I didn't. Let me see, my video got striked. Let's see. Okay, no, it didn't. It's fine. There's no problems. Okay, thankful. Hopefully it stays that way. Hi, Teapot. Thank you for the super chat. I hope that they have a good campaign, Isaiah, in Modern Warfare 2, because I am really looking forward to that. Lore on The Godfather. That's a great question. There's actually 2 lore videos that I wanted to make on The Godfather. But it's going to take some time to make that. Do you know where Uruguay is? Yes, that is in South America. Uruguay borders Brazil. It's a small country in southeastern South America. It borders Brazil, I'm pretty sure. Uruguay is also the country that actually has a record. It had the poorest president in the world was their president. So like the guy who he's not president anymore, but I know the guy who used to be president of Uruguay was like considered the world's poorest president. And it was that he was like and the thing is, the guy was like, I don't know anything really about his politics or any of that stuff, but I do know that he didn't want any special treatment. That's the only thing I know about him. So it's not that he didn't have the option to have extra stuff, but he just didn't want it. But that's what I know about it. You can Google it. It's Uruguay was like world's poorest president, but I don't know much about his politics, so I can't speak on that. But I do know that he didn't. The only thing I know about him is I know that he was he didn't want like any special treatment. Like he drove his own car to the parliament. Like he didn't want a limo or any of that stuff. That's the only thing I really know about that guy. I think he was in prison for some time when he was younger, but that was oh, well, I don't, like I said, Martin, I don't know about his politics. I don't know much about that. But that was what I did know. Would I play Assassin's Creed Origins? Maybe one day. A GTA 5 video where you hang out with friends and do activities? Yeah, we could do something like that, but that will be more part of a lore video that I make. How do you decide what game you play through next? I don't really have a decision-making process. Like, I think about what games I feel like playing, and that's pretty much what I do. What I think about vigilantes, I think that they're wrong, because it's like if you have vigilantism, you're basically gonna have a lawless society where everybody's gonna have a different interpretation of what's justice, and so it's gonna be a recipe of disaster. But what I will say about vigilantism is vigilantism typically exists in places where the police are very corrupt or the police don't know what they're doing. So that's where you'll have vigilantism. Why do people keep asking the same questions on the stream? I don't know. Maybe they didn't hear my answer. I guess I'll be going here in a moment, though, guys. I'll still answer a few questions. I'm gonna probably eat something. I'm hungry. You can't finish Assassin's Creed Origins because of an error code on the Xbox, huh? That really sucks. You'll be able to finish a game that you have because of a glitch. I'm from India. I love your videos. There's one problem though. When you do your Red Dead streams, it is 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. So please stream a little later. I really want to see your Red Dead Redemption streams. If I streamed a little bit later though, man, it would be much later at night because of the I typically start my streams in the late afternoon. What if I streamed earlier though? If I streamed a few hours earlier, would that also work for you? No, I haven't got all the trophies in Red Dead 2. On the 1816 year without a... I don't know what that is, Wolf Killer. Your videos are helping me improve my English. Well, thank you, Mesa. What is your main language right now? Do you think Gaz will die in Modern Warfare 2? What I will say to you is this: is that you can already predict what characters will possibly die and which won't in Modern Warfare 2. I'm not trying to spoil anything, but do you know how you can kind of tell? The operators. Look at who the operators are in the game. Whoever is an operator is not going to die. How do I know that? Because they're going to have Spec Ops in the game. Spec Ops takes place after the story. So you're not going to have somebody that's going to be dead being in Spec Ops after the story. So that's how that. So if you don't see that person as an operator, there's a chance they might die in the story. Did Bad Gamer reply, by the way? I'm trying to see if I see a comment from him. Right now it's 12:38 a.m. for me. What time are you in? In? Can you stream at 1 p.m. my time? I could try to start like 2 p.m. Like why don't I do the? I'll do the next Red Dead stream much earlier. Okay, I'll do the next Red Dead stream much earlier on Friday next on Friday, well, this week. I'll do that. Okay. I'll do that so you can stop by. So I'll start my Friday stream at like 1 or 2 p.m. my time. So it's 12:39 a.m. for me. So that would be, thanks, bro. No problem. Yeah, the sound effects on the motorcycles are pretty good in GTA. You know what game has horrible sound effects on motorcycles? The Ride to Hell Retribution. That game sucked. It was a biker game that was terrible. Well, I guess I'll be going here, guys. Thank you everybody for thank you guys for watching, and I hope that you guys I hope you guys had a great stream, and I hope you guys have a nice night. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, guys.